Welcome back to Stories in a Nutshell. Before we jump in, if you enjoy slower burn, high-stakes ninja stories like this, tap like, drop a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next part. Some legacies are loud. They announce themselves with banners and statues and speeches, and some legacies start as a quiet decision made in the dark when nobody is watching. Because the truth is, Konoha does not survive the war on strength alone. It survives on the choices people make after the fighting stops. The choices that don't get celebrated. The ones that don't fit neatly into a mission report. In the moment one of those choices gets made, everything changes. The village still smells like smoke, even though the fires are out. The Third Great Ninja War is over on paper. The treaties are signed. The borders are stable. The diplomats smile like they didn't spend years ordering teenagers into meat grinders. But Konoha's streets don't feel stable. There are gaps in the crowd where names used to walk. There are empty storefronts. There are memorial tablets receiving fresh incense from hands that shake. Even the academy feels quieter, not because children stop laughing. They never stop, not completely. It's quieter because the adults don't know what to do with peace. Peace is a room you have to learn how to live in. Jiraiya returns to the village like he always does, late, dust-covered, and pretending he isn't carrying a mountain under his ribs. He drifts through the gates with that lazy slouch, hands in his sleeves, smile half-formed like it's a habit his face remembers even when his heart doesn't. The guards greet him. Some of them are new. Some of them look older in the eyes than they have any right to. He jokes. He flirts. He complains about the food he hasn't tasted yet. And then, when nobody is looking, his gaze flicks to the Hokage monument and lingers on the stone face that will never be carved. Minato's place. The fort's shadow still sits over the village like an unlit lantern. Jiraiya tells himself he came back because Hiruzen asked. Because there are loose ends. Because someone has to keep an eye on the world now that it's pretending to behave. But deep down, he comes back because there's one person in this village who knows how it feels to survive everyone you love. Tsunade. He finds her where he expects to find her. Not in the Hokage Tower. Not in some council chamber. Not even in a hospital ward. Though the smell of antiseptic always seems to follow her like an unwanted perfume. He finds her at a training field, alone, in the middle of the day, hitting a wooden post with the kind of precise violence that looks almost peaceful. Her fists move like punctuation marks. Thud, thud. Thud. Every strike lands in the same place. Every impact is controlled. Every breath is measured. But the post is splintering anyway. Because Tsunade does not do anything halfway. Not love. Not grief. Not anger. Jiraiya watches from the edge of the field for longer than he means to. He waits for her to notice him. She doesn't. Not until the post finally gives up, cracking down the middle like a bone. Tsunade exhales. Her shoulders rise and fall once. Then she speaks without turning. "You're breathing like an old man," she says. Jiraiya's mouth curves. "You say that like it's an insult." "It is." He steps forward. The sunlight catches the white of his hair. It makes him look almost mythical. Like the village didn't just spend years bleeding, Tsunade turns at last. Her eyes are sharp, golden brown, tired in a way that never quite leaves. And for a moment, neither of them jokes, because they both remember who is missing. Dan, Nawaki, Minato, so many. Jiraiya clears his throat like he can shove the silence away. "Heard you've been scaring the carpenters. They're filing complaints. They should build better posts." He snorts, and then, because he's Jiraiya, because he can't help it, he adds, "Or they can send me, I'm sturdier." Tsunade's mouth twitches, not quite a smile. But something that almost looks like it could become one, if it's given time. That small, almost smile punches him harder than any fist. Because it means she's still here, not just physically, here. They stand in the field like two survivors circling the same memory. Then Tsunade speaks again, quieter. "The war ended," she says, "and it feels wrong." Jiraiya's grin fades. "Yeah, it's supposed to feel like relief," she says. "Like you can breathe." And instead it feels like the air is waiting to be taken away again. She looks at him then, really looks. Jiraiya feels something in his chest shift, something that's been stuck for years. They've danced around this for too long. Jokes and distance, visits and leaving. Comfort offered like it's a debt, not a desire. Jiraiya has always been good at wanting things from afar. It keeps him safe. It keeps everyone else safe too. But the war has a way of making safety feel like a lie you tell yourself to sleep. Tsunade wipes dust from her knuckles. "Why are you back, Jiraiya?" He almost says the easy answer. "Because the Hokage asked." Because the world is unstable. Because he's got leads. Because he's restless. Instead, he says the truth that tastes like blood and honey. "Because I'm tired of leaving." Tsunade's eyes narrow, like she doesn't trust softness, like she thinks it might be a trap. "You always leave." "Yeah," he says, "I know." A pause. Then, very carefully, he takes a step closer. Not into her space like a flirt. into her space like a man offering his whole flawed self. Dan's gone, he says. He doesn't say it to hurt her. He says it because they both carry the name anyway. And Nawaki and Minato. And, he swallows, I keep thinking if I stay moving, it won't catch up to me. Tsunade's jaw tightens. Jiraiya continues, voice low, but I'm not a kid anymore. Running doesn't make me lighter. It just makes me alone. Her breath catches, almost imperceptible. I don't want to be alone, he says. Not if I don't have to. The field is quiet. Wind moves through grass. Somewhere far away, a child laughs and the sound is so ordinary it feels like a miracle. Tsunade looks down at her hands. Her fingers flex as if remembering the weight of someone else's pulse. When I left the village, she says, I told myself it was because I couldn't stand the blood anymore. Jiraiya waits. But it wasn't just that, she admits. It was the fear. The fear that if I stayed, I'd keep losing people, one by one, until there was nothing left. Her eyes lift. And then I'd be the one still breathing, she says, bitter. Like that's some kind of victory. Jiraiya nods slowly, because he understands that too well. Tsunade's voice turns sharper, like she hates how honest she's being. So don't say this if you don't mean it. He doesn't flinch. I mean it. She studies him for a long moment, searching for the escape route in his expression. She doesn't find it. Finally, Tsunade exhales. One condition, she says. Name it. No more running away when it gets hard. Jiraiya's laugh is soft, but not amused. More like relieved. Lady, everything in my life has been hard. That's not an answer. He sobers. No more running, he promises. If you'll let me stay. Tsunade's gaze holds his. Then she steps forward and does something she hasn't done in years. She leans her forehead against his chest. Just for a second. Not dramatic, not theatrical. Just real. Jiraiya goes still, like he's afraid moving will break the moment. Her voice is muffled. Fine, she says. Stay. And in that quiet, almost unnoticeable decision, the future bends. Not all changes announce themselves with thunder. Some begin with a single word spoken into someone's heartbeat. A few days later, the village gives them a reason to stop pretending peace is simple. Because Orochimaru comes home. He arrives like a shadow that learned to walk in daylight. There's no grand parade, no celebration, no cheering. The snake Sannin doesn't inspire cheers, he inspires unease. Orochimaru walks through Konoha with that same calm smile, pale face unreadable, golden eyes bright with curiosity that never feels innocent. He greets Hiruzen with the respect of a student, voice smooth as oil. He nods at Jiraiya, like they're simply colleagues returning from a long trip. He looks at Tsunade and smiles just a little wider, as if he's amused by her being there at all. Tsunade's stomach twists. Not because she fears him in a direct way, not like she fears loss. It's because Orochimaru always makes her feel like she's standing next to something cold-blooded wearing human skin. Hiruzen calls them into a closed room. The old Hokage looks older than he should. War does that to leaders. It turns their hair gray and their eyes heavier. I asked you all here, Hiruzen says, because we have unfinished business. Jiraiya leans against the wall, arms folded. You mean the part where the war ends and everyone pretends we're fine? Hiruzen gives him a tired look. Among other things, Orochimaru tilts his head. How ominous. Tsunade crosses her arms. Just say it. Hiruzen's gaze drops to a scroll on the table. It is sealed. The seal pattern is complex, protective. Like the Hokage Tower itself doesn't want to touch what's inside. We intercepted reports, Hiruzen says, from our borders, from our allies, from... He hesitates, and that hesitation says more than words, from sources that normally do not fail. Jiraiya's posture shifts, alert. Tsunade narrows her eyes. What reports? Hiruzen breaks the seal. The scroll opens, and the room feels colder. Drawings, notes, a diagram of a human body with markings on chakra pathways, another diagram with a face that looks familiar. A face with long black hair, stern eyes. Hashirama Senju. Tsunade's breath catches. Her hand tightens around her own elbow like she needs something to hold. Hiruzen's voice is heavy. There have been experiments. Orochimaru's eyes brighten. Just a fraction, like a candle catching flame. Tsunade notices. Her skin prickles. Experiments? Jiraiya repeats. Hiruzen nods. On prisoners. On orphans. On shinobi taken from battlefields before their bodies reach the morgue. Tsunade's jaw tightens hard enough to hurt. Jiraiya's voice goes flat. Who? Hiruzen doesn't answer immediately, because he doesn't want to, but the silence is already an accusation. Orochimaru smiles lightly. Now, he says. We should be careful with assumptions. Science can look ugly to those with delicate sensibilities. Tsunade turns toward him so fast the air seems to crack. Delicate? Hiruzen finally speaks the name. Orochimaru. The room goes still. It's like the village itself pauses to listen. Orochimaru doesn't look surprised, he looks entertained. So you found them, he says softly, almost fond. How thorough. Tsunade steps forward, hands curling into fists. What did you do? Orochimaru's gaze slides to her fists like he's studying tools. Advanced our understanding, he says. Hashirama's cells, his chakra, his ability. The village worships a founder and then allows his greatest gift to vanish. I simply corrected that waste. Jiraiya's voice is low. Dangerous. You used people. Orochimaru shrugs. People are used in war every day. At least mine had purpose. Tsunade's pulse thunders in her ears. You used children. Orochimaru's smile fades, but only slightly. Age is irrelevant to biology. That's when Tsunade moves. It isn't a calculated strike. It isn't measured like her training field punches. It's grief and rage and horror condensed into one motion. Her fist slams into Orochimaru's jaw. The impact is explosive. The floor cracks beneath him as he's thrown back into the wall, plaster raining down. Orochimaru coughs once, wiping blood from his lip with a calm that feels unnatural. Jiraiya doesn't stop her. He doesn't try to play mediator. Because for once, Tsunade is doing what he's wanted to do for years. Hiruzen's voice snaps. Enough! But the room is already on fire. Tsunade points at Orochimaru like he's a disease. You're done, she spits. You're not one of us. Orochimaru's eyes gleam. Ah, he says, there it is, the moral line. He glances at Hiruzen. Are you going to pretend you didn't benefit from my work, sensei? How many of your shinobi lived because of techniques I developed? How many villages hesitated because they feared what Konoha might do next? Hiruzen's face tightens. That is not the same. It's exactly the same, Orochimaru murmurs. You simply disliked the mirror. Jiraiya steps forward now, voice cold. You crossed a line. Orochimaru meets his gaze. Lines are drawn by the comfortable and redrawn by the desperate. Tsunade's voice shakes, but not from fear. You are desperate. Orochimaru's smile returns. Aren't we all? Hiruzen's hands tremble slightly as he grips his pipe. Orochimaru, he says, pain in his tone. Surrender, submit to judgment. Perhaps there is still a way. Orochimaru's eyes soften for a split second. Not kindness, nostalgia. Then the softness dies. No, he says simply. And in that one word, he severs himself from the village like a snake shedding skin. He moves. The room becomes motion and impact. Jiraiya's hands flash through seals. A barrier snaps up. Tsunade lunges again. But Orochimaru is already slipping between them, his body bending in ways it shouldn't, his presence sliding like oil through cracks. He isn't trying to win, he's trying to leave. And he does. A swirl of smoke, a flicker of movement through a window that shouldn't open, a hiss of laughter that lingers like venom. He's gone. The room is ruined. Dust drifts down like ash. Hiruzen stands there, staring at the empty space where his student just was, and for the first time, the Hokage looks like a man who has failed. Tsunade's breath comes fast. Her hands shake. Jiraiya lowers his barrier slowly. His face is drawn tight with fury. Hiruzen speaks quietly. We will hunt him. Tsunade's voice is raw. We should have ended him here. Hiruzen flinches. He was my student. And those were children, Tsunade snarls. Silence falls again. This time, it isn't peaceful. This time, it's the sound of something breaking that can't be repaired. Later, when Tsunade is alone, she washes her hands until her skin turns red. It doesn't matter. She still feels dirty, not from Orochimaru's blood, from the realization that they were all standing near the edge of a cliff and nobody noticed until the ground gave way. Jiraiya finds her in the hallway outside the medical ward, leaning against the wall like she's trying to hold herself upright through sheer stubbornness. He doesn't speak at first. He just stands beside her. After a long moment, Tsunade whispers, If I had known, if I had seen it sooner. Jiraiya doesn't let her drown in that. You would have tried to stop him, he says, and you did. That matters. It doesn't fix anything. No, he admits, but it keeps you from becoming him. She turns her face away, blinking fast. Jiraiya's voice softens. We're going to end this, he says. We will. Tsunade's laugh is bitter. You sound like you're trying to convince yourself. Maybe I am, he says, but I'm also trying to convince you to keep breathing. She looks at him then, eyes bright with something dangerous. Don't make promises you can't keep, Jiraiya. He holds her gaze. Then help me keep them. That's when she realizes something else. Something she's been ignoring, because grief and rage are loud, and the body's quiet signals are easy to miss when the world is screaming. Her heartbeat feels different, not faster, not weaker, different. Her hand drifts unconsciously to her abdomen. Jiraiya notices. What? Tsunade swallows. The war took so much, it's almost unbearable to admit the universe might be giving something back. I haven't been feeling right, she says, for weeks. Jiraiya's brow furrows. You're Tsunade. You're always feeling not right. She shoots him a look and he shuts up. Tsunade inhales slowly, then says the words like she's afraid speaking them will make them vanish. I think I'm pregnant. Jiraiya freezes. It's a rare sight. The toad sage, stunned into silence. For a second, he looks like he doesn't understand language anymore. Then his eyes widen. What? Tsunade's throat tightens. Don't say it like that. I didn't. He stops himself, breath shaky. Tsunade, are you sure? She gives him a look so sharp it could cut steel. I'm a medic. His mouth opens and closes once, then, very slowly, his face changes. The humor slips away. The arrogance. The wandering. What's left is something almost boyish. Hope. And fear, because hope is terrifying after you've watched it die before. Jiraiya takes a careful step closer, like he's approaching something sacred. We can, he begins. Don't, Tsunade warns, eyes shining. Don't start talking about futures like they're guaranteed. Jiraiya nods. He swallows hard. Okay, he says, voice low. Then we do what we can. We protect what we can. Tsunade's shoulders tremble slightly. I don't know if I can do this, she admits. Not after. He doesn't let her finish. He places his hand over hers, gentle. You don't have to do it alone, he says. And Tsunade hates how much that helps. Because it means she wants to believe him. Because it means she might let herself want something again. In the weeks that follow, Konoha moves like a wounded animal trying to heal. The village hunts Orochimaru, but he becomes rumor more than man. A trail here, a stolen body there, a whisper in the wrong marketplace. Jiraiya starts traveling again, but this time he always returns, not with excuses, with information. He moves like a man with something precious tethered to his spine. Tsunade continues working because she doesn't know how to stop. But the way she holds her stomach when she thinks nobody is watching becomes a habit. Hiruzen makes decisions with heavier hands. He keeps secrets like he's trying to bury them before they grow teeth. And in the shadows, Danzo watches. He doesn't come to Tsunade. Not directly. Danzo is a man who prefers his hands clean while other people bleed, but his interest becomes a presence. ANBU patrols increase around certain districts. Paperwork shifts. Funding changes. People who ask too many questions are reassigned. Tsunade notices. She always notices. And she hates it. Because she knows what Danzo sees when he hears Tsunade is pregnant. He doesn't see a child. He sees a resource, a political symbol, a bloodline. A possible return of something Konoha hasn't had since the first Hokage died. A Senju heir. Tsunade refuses to let that thought root in her mind. But it does anyway. It grows in the corners, just like fear always does. When the day comes, it comes fast. Tsunade's labor is not gentle. It is not romantic. It is not cinematic. It is pain and sweat and teeth clenched against screaming, because she refuses to give the village the satisfaction of hearing her break. Jiraiya stays near her, terrified and useless in equal measure, trying to crack jokes and failing. The medical ward is quiet, save for Tsunade's breathing and the sharp, efficient voices of medics. And then, a cry, small, fierce, alive. Tsunade collapses back against the pillows, chest heaving, eyes squeezed shut. When she opens them, the baby is placed against her. He is red-faced and angry, fists clenched like he's already ready to fight the world for daring to exist without permission. Tsunade stares at him like she can't quite believe he's real. Jiraiya stands beside her, eyes wide, hands hovering like he's afraid touching will turn the moment into smoke. Tsunade breathes out. He's loud. Jiraiya's laugh breaks, half a sob. Good, he whispers. Let him be loud. Tsunade looks up at him. Naruto, she says suddenly. Jiraiya blinks. Naruto? She nods, voice hoarse. A spiral, she murmurs. Not a straight line. Not an ending. A continuation. Jiraiya's gaze softens. Naruto, he repeats, like tasting the name, like promising it. The baby yells again, as if agreeing. Tsunade's lips curve faintly. For the first time in years, the world gives her something that doesn't immediately demand blood. But peace never stays quiet for long, because the moment Naruto's tiny hand curls around Tsunade's finger, the chakra in the room shifts. At first, it's subtle, a pressure change, a strange freshness in the air, like rain about to fall. Then the lamps flicker. The medics pause, uneasy. Jiraiya's head lifts sharply, instinct screaming. Tsunade feels it too. It isn't hostile. It's deep, old, like the ground remembering a forest. Naruto's crying stops abruptly. His eyes blue, impossibly bright open, and focus on nothing in particular. Then the floorboards near the bed creak. A thin green shoot pushes through the wood, right between the cracks. A medic gasps. What? The shoot grows, fast, too fast. It unfurls leaves like it's been waiting for permission all along. Within seconds, a sapling stands beside Tsunade's bed, trembling slightly as if breathing. The air fills with the smell of living earth. Silence slams into the room. Jiraiya stares. Tsunade's blood goes cold, because she knows what she's looking at. Not medical ninjutsu, Not a trick, not a genjutsu. This is a Kekkei Ginkai that should not be here. Wood release. Hashirama's gift. Naruto's tiny hand flexes. The sapling responds, leaves rustling softly. Tsunade pulls her son closer instinctively, heart pounding so hard it hurts. Jiraiya takes one slow step back, eyes locked on the tree, then on the baby. His voice is barely a whisper. Tsunade, she doesn't answer. Because she can't. Because her mind is already racing through consequences like their kunai flying at her face. If Danzo hears, if other villages hear, if Orochimaru hears. Naruto yawns, utterly unconcerned, and his eyelids flutter closed like he just stretched after a nap. The sapling steadies. The room remains frozen. Then Tsunade speaks, voice low and iron hard. No one leaves this room, she says. The medics look at her in shock. Tsunade's eyes cut through them. Not a word, she says, and there is something in her tone that makes even seasoned shinobi swallow. Jiraiya's face is pale, but his gaze is fierce. He understands. This is not just a child. This is a signal flare, a promise, a threat, a miracle that will get people killed if it's mishandled. Tsunade looks down at Naruto. His face is peaceful now, tiny chest rising and falling. So innocent, so unaware of the weight being stacked onto his name before he can even speak it. Her throat tightens. A narrator's truth sits heavy in the air. The world doesn't care that he's a baby. The world only cares that he's powerful. And that is the cruelest kind of attention. Outside the ward, down the hallway, a shadow passes an open doorway. A masked figure pauses, just long enough to feel the chakra ripple through the building, just long enough to see the leaves trembling in the lamplight. And then the figure moves on, silent as a breath, disappearing into the corridors of Konoha like the village's own secrets. Inside, Tsunade holds Naruto tighter. Jiraiya stands guard, hands already forming seals in his mind, calculating escape routes, allies, enemies. Because the war may be over, but a different kind of battle has just begun. And somewhere out there, someone is already deciding what Naruto is worth. The lights flicker once more. The sapling's leaves rustle softly, and the silence at the end of this moment feels like a held breath right before a storm. The shadow doesn't run. It doesn't need to. It moves the way secrets move in a village built on them, slow, deliberate, confident that the walls will cooperate. Down the corridor, past a nurse carrying clean sheets, past a medic with blood on his sleeve, the masked figure drifts like it belongs here, like it has always belonged here. Konoha's greatest trick has never been its jutsu. It has been its ability to hide its own fear behind protocol. And tonight, the fear smells like fresh leaves. The figure pauses once, just long enough to let the chakra ripple settle against its senses, and then continues toward a stairwell that leads away from the ward and into the guts of the building. Outside, the village breathes in the dark. Inside the room, Tsunade is still holding Naruto like the world might try to pull him out of her arms. Jiraiya has moved to the window. He checks the latch twice. Then he checks it again, because he suddenly hates how easily glass can break. The sapling beside the bed is small, fragile looking, almost cute if you ignore what it represents. A living announcement. Tsunade stares at it, and the same cold thought keeps circling her mind like a vulture. If this gets out, it will never go back in. The medics stand frozen, eyes darting between Tsunade's face and the tree. One of them, older, steady hands, veteran eyes, swallows and whispers. Lady Tsunade, what is that? Tsunade doesn't look away from Naruto. Her voice is quiet, and that quiet is more dangerous than shouting. A problem, she says, if you speak. The medic nods immediately. Understanding the unspoken rule, survival is often about what you don't say. Jiraiya turns from the window, voice low. We need Hiruzen. Now. Tsunade's jaw tightens. Hiruzen, yes. Danzo, no. Jiraiya doesn't argue. He doesn't have to. The name alone makes the air feel tighter. A soft knock comes at the door. Every spine in the room straightens. Jiraiya's hand lifts, fingers already poised for a seal. Tsunade's chakra stirs, thick as storm clouds. The door opens slowly. It's not a stranger. It's an ANBU in a cat mask. The mask tilts as if sniffing the room. Then the ANBU speaks, voice muffled. Hokage-sama requests an update. Tsunade's eyes narrow. How fast, she says. The ANBU doesn't answer the accusation. Jiraiya steps forward, friendly tone stretched over steel. Tell the old man we'll come to him. He doesn't need to send runners into a maternity ward. The ANBU pauses. That pause is too precise. Like someone is listening through them. Then the ANBU nods once and disappears, leaving the door closing softly behind. Tsunade's breath comes out slow. They already know something, she murmurs. Jiraiya's gaze hardens. They felt it, he says. That chakra wasn't subtle. Tsunade looks down at Naruto. He sleeps like the world isn't built to hunt unusual children. She presses her lips to his forehead, not because it will protect him, because it reminds her why she has to. A little later, Hiruzen arrives, not with a crowd, not with a council. Just him, one personal guard, and the weight of leadership sitting visibly on his shoulders. The old Hokage stands in the doorway and stops. He sees the sapling. He sees Tsunade's face. His eyes close briefly, like he is praying to a god he doesn't believe in. Then he steps inside and speaks softly. Show me. Tsunade doesn't move the tree. She doesn't touch it. She doesn't need to. She simply shifts Naruto's tiny hand, letting Hiruzen see the faint green glow in his chakra signature, the way it hums in the air. Hiruzen approaches the sapling and crouches. His fingers hover near the leaves, careful as if he's touching history. This, he whispers. Jiraiya's voice is rough. You know what it is. Hiruzen doesn't deny it. Yes, he says. Would release. Tsunade's eyes flash. Say it again, she says. Like hearing it twice might make it make sense. Hiruzen's gaze lifts to her. I wish I could say it means nothing, he admits, but it means everything. Because the village remembers Hashirama Senju, the way people remember a storm they survived. Not with warmth, with awe, and with fear. Hiruzen stands. He looks at Tsunade and Jiraiya with the kind of sorrow that only comes from seeing the future too clearly. We keep this quiet, he says immediately. Tsunade's laugh is sharp. No one in this room needs that instruction. I'm not worried about you, Hiruzen says gently. Then his tone turns harder. I'm worried about what the village does when it believes it has been given a miracle. Jiraiya leans back against the wall, arms folded. And I'm worried about what other villages do when they hear Konoha has a second Hashirama. Hiruzen nods grimly. Exactly. Tsunade's voice is cold. Danzo? Hiruzen hesitates. That hesitation is an answer. Tsunade's eyes burn. So he already knows. He suspects, Hiruzen says carefully. He felt the surge. He has people everywhere. Jiraiya mutters, of course he does. Tsunade's fingers tighten around Naruto. If he comes near my son, Hiruzen raises a hand. He will not touch the child, he says. Tsunade's stare is merciless. Can you promise that? Hiruzen's mouth tightens. He looks older in that moment than any Hokage monument. I can promise I will try, he says. That is not enough. It is never enough. But it is all he can honestly give. Hiruzen steps closer to the bed. His voice softens again. Tsunade, he says. You have a choice to make. Tsunade's eyes narrow. I already made it, she says. I'm keeping him. A flicker crosses Hiruzen's face, something like relief or guilt. That's not the choice I mean, he says quietly. Jiraiya's posture shifts. What are you talking about? Hiruzen inhales. The Senju name, he says. The air changes. Tsunade's throat tightens. The Senju are not just a clan, they are an idea. A promise Konoha was built on. And an idea is harder to protect than a baby. If the village learns, Hiruzen continues, they will demand clarity. They will demand lineage. They will demand to know why a child carries the founder's gift. Tsunade's gaze is sharp. So we lie. Hiruzen's eyes flicker to Naruto. We control the truth, he corrects gently, like a teacher trying to soften the knife. Jiraiya scoffs. That's a fancy way to say lie. Hiruzen doesn't argue. Yes, he admits. We lie. For the child's safety. Tsunade stares at Naruto. In her mind, she sees Nawaki's face, bright and eager, wearing the Senju crest like it was a sunrise. She sees Dan's smile, warm and steady, promising a future the war ripped away. She sees herself leaving the village, trying to outrun the pain. And now, in her arms, she holds something that feels like the universe daring her to hope again. Her voice comes out low. You want me to claim him? Hiruzen nods. Publicly, officially, make it undeniable. Jiraiya's eyes widen. That paints a target on his back. It also puts him under the village's protection, Hiruzen says. Tsunade's laugh is bitter. The village's protection, she repeats, like tasting poison. Or the village's ownership. Hiruzen's gaze meets hers. Both, he says, honest. That is the cost. A narrator's truth cuts through the room. Sometimes the safest place for something valuable is not hidden in the dark. Sometimes it is placed under the brightest light, surrounded by rules and witnesses, because darkness is where thieves thrive. Tsunade closes her eyes. When she opens them, her expression is hard. We do it my way, she says. Hiruzen waits. Tsunade's voice doesn't waver. Naruto is not a project. He is not a weapon. He is not a bargaining chip. If I claim him as Senju, it is to protect him as a person. Jiraiya watches her, heart tight. Hiruzen nods slowly. Agreed. Tsunade continues, gaze blazing, and Danzo stays away. You will make that order. Written, sealed, recorded. Hiruzen hesitates again. Then he nods, heavier this time. I will. Jiraiya's mouth twitches, humorless. Good luck enforcing it. Hiruzen's eyes harden. I will enforce it. And Tsunade knows he means it. She also knows meaning something doesn't guarantee success. Still, it's something. Hiruzen steps back. Rest, he says softly. All rings the announcement in a way that minimizes panic. Tsunade's eyes narrow. Minimizes panic, she echoes. Hiruzen looks at her. Tsunade, he says quietly, the village has been bleeding for years. People will latch on to this child like he is proof their suffering meant something. Tsunade's grip tightens. He doesn't owe them meaning. No, Hiruzen agrees, but they will demand it anyway. He turns to leave, then pauses at the door, voice low enough that only Tsunade and Jiraiya hear. And there is another matter, he says. Jiraiya's eyes sharpen. Orochimaru. Hiruzen nods. We found one of his caches, he says. Notes, samples. Tsunade's stomach twists. Hiruzen's expression is grim. He was trying to recreate Hashirama's gift, he says. He failed, repeatedly. Jiraiya's voice is quiet and lethal, and now he won't have to recreate it. Hiruzen's eyes flick to Naruto. Yes, he whispers. Then the Hokage leaves. The room feels colder without him. Tsunade stares at the sapling, then at Naruto's sleeping face. Welcome to the world, she whispers. It's going to try to eat you. Jiraiya's voice is rough. Not while I'm breathing. Tsunade doesn't look at him. Don't make promises you can't keep. He pauses. Then he says something that sounds like a vow. Then I'll become someone who can. Days pass. Then weeks. And Konoha begins to rearrange itself around a baby who has no idea he's already shaping politics. The announcement happens in the Hokage Tower, behind closed doors at first. Then it spreads, because secrets in Konoha are like smoke. You can close the windows, you can lock the doors, but it still finds cracks. Hiruzen stands before the elders, the council, select Jonin leaders. Tsunade stands at his side, Naruto in her arms, wrapped in a simple blanket. Jiraiya stands behind her, eyes scanning every face like he's reading threat patterns. Hiruzen speaks clearly. This child, he says, is Naruto Senju. A ripple runs through the room. Elders lean forward. Some faces soften instantly, relief blooming like dawn. Some tighten, fear sharpening. Danzo does not smile, not outwardly. But Tsunade sees something in his gaze. Calculation. Ownership. She meets his eyes and lets him see exactly what she is willing to do to protect her son. Danzo inclines his head slightly, polite. It feels like a handshake offered by a man who hides knives in his sleeves. Later, outside the tower, when the rumor becomes reality, Konoha reacts the way wounded people react to hope. They cling, they whisper. They look toward the Senju crest like it might make them feel safe again. Some are kind, some are hungry. Tsunade hates both, because kindness turns into expectation too easily, and hunger is never satisfied. At the Senju estate quiet for years, half abandoned, haunted by memories, Tsunade takes Naruto home. She refuses offers of help from people she doesn't trust. She refuses the council's suggestion that Naruto be raised under supervision. She refuses Danzo's subtle request to assist with security. Jiraiya helps, but in a way only he can. He doesn't hover like a guard. He becomes a presence, a rumor in the village, the kind that makes people think twice before trying something foolish. He also begins to move again. Short trips, longer ones, information gathering, but he always returns. And when he returns, he always looks at Naruto first, like checking whether the universe has stolen him while Jiraiya wasn't watching. Tsunade watches Jiraiya watch Naruto, and something inside her aches. Because she understands that kind of fear, and she understands that kind of love. Naruto grows fast, not unnaturally fast, just alive in a way that feels like he's always reaching for more air. He laughs easily, he cries loudly. He kicks like he's fighting invisible enemies even in his sleep. And sometimes, when his emotions spike, when he startles, when he giggles too hard, the world answers him. A vine curling around a chair leg, a leaf sprouting through a crack in the porch, a wooden toy reshaping itself under his tiny fingers. Tsunade learns quickly what triggers it. Not anger, not always, mostly need, protection, comfort. The wood responds when Naruto wants something to be safe. It makes sense in a cruel way. A child's first power isn't to destroy, it's to cling. And Mokuton is the ultimate clinging jutsu. It grows, it holds, it wraps, it builds shelter. Tsunade trains herself to be calm, to never startle him, to never let fear spike her own chakra around him. Because she learned something terrifying, Naruto doesn't just respond to his emotions, he responds to hers. One afternoon, when Naruto is still small enough to fit comfortably in her arms, Tsunade receives a visitor she did not invite. Kakashi Hatake. He arrives quietly, as he always does. Half his face is hidden behind his mask. His eye is calm, but there's a heaviness there that doesn't belong to a man his age. Tsunade watches him from the doorway of the estate, suspicion sharp. "Kakashi," she says, "why are you here?" Kakashi bows slightly, polite. "Hokage-sama asked me to check in," he says. Tsunade's eyes narrow. "Check in," she repeats. Kakashi's gaze shifts briefly to Naruto, who is chewing on his own fingers like they're the greatest invention in history. Kakashi's voice is quiet. "Security," he says, "and discretion." Tsunade's jaw tightens. Hiruzen is afraid Danzo will move. Kakashi doesn't deny it. Tsunade studies Kakashi. "And what are you?" she asks, blunt. "A guard, a spy, a leash?" Kakashi's eye doesn't flicker. "A wall," he says simply. There's something in the way he says it that makes Tsunade pause. Not because she trusts him, because she recognizes the truth behind it. Kakashi has been a wall since he was a child. It's the only way he survived. Tsunade's voice lowers. "You've lost people," she says. Kakashi's eye softens just slightly. "Yes," he says. Tsunade looks at Naruto. "So you know what I'm afraid of?" Kakashi nods once. "Yes." Tsunade steps aside. "Then come in," she says. "But understand this." Kakashi pauses. Tsunade's gaze is hard. "If anyone tries to take him," she says, "they'll need more than masks." Kakashi's voice is almost a whisper. "I'm counting on it," he says. That night, Kakashi stays. Not openly. He doesn't sit in the living room like a guest. He disappears into the shadows of the estate like he was born there. Tsunade lies awake longer than she wants to admit. Naruto sleeps in a small cradle beside her bed. The air is quiet. Too quiet. A narrator's truth slips in like cold water. The moments before a threat arrives often feel peaceful, because your instincts are resting. And that's exactly when predators like to move. Tsunade closes her eyes, listening to Naruto's breathing, listening to the faint creak of the old estate settling. She thinks of Hashirama, of how his gift shaped the world, of how people loved him and feared him, of how gifts like this never stay personal for long. She thinks of Orochimaru's smile, oily and amused. She thinks of Danzo's gaze. She thinks of Jiraiya leaving again tomorrow to chase another rumor, another trail. And she thinks, maybe the war didn't end. Maybe it simply changed uniforms. A soft sound, not loud, not a crash. Just a whisper of movement where movement shouldn't be. Tsunade's eyes open instantly. Naruto stirs. His tiny brow furrows, sensing her tension. Tsunade forces herself to breathe slowly. A shadow passes over the window. Kakashi moves. So fast? Tsunade almost doesn't see it. A flicker of ANBU black in the darkness. A hand gesture. A silent warning. Tsunade's heart pounds once. Then the window latch clicks. Someone is trying to open it from the outside. Tsunade's chakra flares, controlled but sharp. Naruto's hand twitches. The air tastes green. Tsunade grips Naruto gently, whispering, "Sleep," like the word is a shield. The latch gives. The window slides open a fraction. A thin wire snakes inside, almost invisible. Not a weapon. A tool. A hook. Someone is fishing. For her child. Kakashi's blade flashes. The wire is severed cleanly. The window slams shut without Tsunade moving. Kakashi stands outside now, somehow, perched on the outer ledge like gravity is optional. His eye is cold. On the roof above him, 3 figures crouch. Masks, ANBU style. But something is off. Their movements are too smooth, too practiced, too familiar. Not foreign, not outside enemies. These are people trained in Konoha's darkness. One of them raises a hand, a signal, and the roof explodes into motion. Kakashi moves first, a blur of steel and restraint. He doesn't shout. He doesn't make noise. He disables. A hand twisted, a leg swept, a mask cracked. Tsunade rises from bed, Naruto pressed to her chest, and for a second she is torn between fighting and calming. Because Naruto is stirring now, sensing danger, his chakra begins to swell. A vine pushes through the floorboard near the cradle, thickening as if ready to lash out. Tsunade forces her voice to stay soft. "Naruto," she whispers, soothing. "Breathe." The figures on the roof move like they've trained for this exact scenario. One throws a flash muted, meant not to wake the neighborhood. Another forms hand signs for a muffling barrier, trying to keep the fight silent. They don't want witnesses. They want extraction. Kakashi blocks the barrier with the counterseal, his hand moving with precise speed. But there are 3, and even Kakashi can't be everywhere. One of the masked figures drops from the roof toward the window, moving like a falling knife. Tsunade's eyes narrow. She moves to the window, still holding Naruto because she refuses to be chased inside her own home. Her free hand snaps forward. The wall beside the window cracks under the sheer force of her chakra as she punches. The masked figure tries to twist away, but Tsunade's strike is merciless. It slams into the ribcage with a sound like snapping wood. The figure flies backward, crashing into the courtyard. Tsunade breathes hard, eyes blazing. Naruto yelps, startled. And in that startled cry, fear, confusion, instinct, the estate answers. Wood erupts. Not a sapling, not a vine. A thick wooden beam bursts from the floor near the window, snapping upward like a spear, blocking entry points. Vines coil along the frame, tightening, reinforcing, as if the house itself is wrapping its arms around the baby. For a heartbeat, it is beautiful. A living defense. A mother's instinct turned into architecture. And then Tsunade realizes what it means. Every surge like this is a flare. Every flare is a message. Someone out there will feel it. Someone out there will listen. Kakashi drops into the courtyard, landing beside the masked intruder Tsunade struck. The intruder groans, trying to move. Kakashi's blade rests at their throat. "Don't," he says quietly. The intruder freezes. The other two masked figures retreat. Fast, silent, vanishing into rooftops with the kind of discipline that makes Tsunade's blood chill. They aren't random thieves. They're trained. And they have an escape route planned. Kakashi doesn't chase. He stays. Because the point tonight wasn't to win a rooftop duel. The point was to keep Naruto here. Tsunade steps into the courtyard. Naruto clutched tight, her gaze scanning the darkness for more movement. "Who sent you?" she demands, voice low and murderous. The masked intruder doesn't answer. Kakashi's eye narrows. "Poison tooth," he murmurs. Tsunade sees it then, a faint smear at the corner of the mask, a capsule tucked near the jaw hinge. A suicide mechanism. Standard for operatives who can't be allowed to talk. Kakashi's hand moves instantly, gripping the intruder's jaw, forcing the mechanism away before it can trigger. The intruder thrashes, desperate. Tsunade leans closer, eyes cold. "Who?" she repeats. The intruder's breathing is ragged. Then, in a voice strained and muffled through the mask, they whisper one word. Not a name, a unit. Root. Tsunade's blood goes ice. Kakashi's gaze hardens, because Root isn't supposed to exist officially. Root is the thing the village pretends isn't there while it uses it anyway. Tsunade's voice drops into something almost calm. "Danzo," she whispers. The intruder stiffens. That stiffness is confirmation enough. Naruto whimpers softly, sensing the tension like a storm pressure change. Tsunade forces herself to breathe, to soothe him, but her mind is already racing. If Danzo is moving this early, then Hirusen's order meant nothing. Or worse, it meant Danzo heard the order and decided to defy it immediately. Kakashi's voice is quiet. "We should move," he says. "Now." Tsunade's eyes blaze. "To where?" she snaps. "This is my home." Kakashi meets her gaze steadily. And it's compromised. Tsunade's jaw tightens. A narrator's truth presses down. The first time someone tries to steal your child, you think it's an exception. The second time, you realize it's a pattern. And patterns don't stop unless you break them. Tsunade looks down at Naruto. He has stopped whimpering. His eyes are open, bright blue, staring up at her like he's trying to understand why the world feels sharp. His tiny hand grips her sleeve, and Tsunade feels something inside her settle into place. Not fear, decision. She looks at Kakashi. "Get the Hokage," she says. "Now." Kakashi nods and disappears, leaving a faint ripple in the air like the world blinked. Tsunade turns to the masked intruder, voice deadly soft. "You picked the wrong child," she says. The intruder shakes, silent. Tsunade's fist tightens. Then she stops, because she hears it. Footsteps, not Kakashi. Different. A soft shuffle. Two sets, coming from the side gate. Tsunade's eyes snap toward the sound. Two A and BU appear in the courtyard entrance. Dog mask, bird mask. They raise their hands slightly, palms open, a gesture meant to look harmless. Tsunade's instincts scream, because if Kakashi already engaged three on the roof, these two are either reinforcements or cleanup. Dog mask speaks first. "Lady Tsunade," the voice says politely. "We're here to secure the situation." Tsunade's eyes narrow. "Who sent you?" "By order of Hokage-sama," Dog mask replies. Tsunade's gaze sharpens. "Then you won't mind if I verify with him." A pause. Too long. Bird mask shifts slightly. Tsunade's chakra rises. Naruto stirs, sensing it. Leaves rustle in the window frame behind her as the estate's Mokuton defense remains half awake. Dog mask's voice stays smooth. "There's no need," he says. "We can escort you to a safer location." Escort. A pretty word. A word that can mean protection. Or capture. Tsunade's voice is quiet, razor-edged. Step back. Dog mask doesn't. Bird mask doesn't. And Tsunade realizes with chilling clarity, this isn't just Danzo acting alone. This is someone moving through official channels. Someone using the word Hokage like a passcode. Someone trying to make Tsunade hesitate long enough for Naruto to be taken. Her eyes harden. She shifts Naruto higher against her chest, protective. Then she speaks, voice iron. "Last warning. Dog Mask's posture changes, subtle, but Tsunade sees it, the shift from diplomacy to action. And in that instant, Naruto's tiny hand flexes against her collar. The air tastes like forest again. The wooden beam near the window creaks. Vines tighten, and the courtyard holds its breath. Because whatever happens next will decide whether Naruto Senju remains a child or becomes Konoha's most dangerous possession. And somewhere in the village's shadows, someone is already counting on Tsunade to blink first. Tsunade doesn't blink. She doesn't even breathe for a full second. Because she's learned something cruel in her life, the people who want to take something from you always arrive wearing the mask of help. They call it duty. They call it policy. They call it protection. They never call it theft. Dog Mask takes one step forward. Bird Mask angles slightly to the side, trying to form a line that turns Tsunade into a corner without looking like a corner. Tsunade's eyes flick between them. Her mind is already measuring distance, timing, angles. Not like a medic. Like a shinobi who buried too many bodies and learned what hesitation costs. Naruto's fingers clutch at her collar. He's quiet now, eyes wide, reading her heartbeat the way newborns do, through skin and vibration and instinct. The vines along the window frame twitch. The estate is still half awake, like a beast with one eye open. Dog Mask speaks again, voice calm. "Lady Tsunade, please. This is for the child's safety." Tsunade's mouth curves barely, not a smile. A warning. "Then you'll stop coming closer." Bird Mask's head tilts, just a fraction. "We're not your enemy." Tsunade's gaze sharpens. "You standing between me and my exit," she says. "That makes you my enemy." Dog Mask exhales through the mask, the sound like impatience. "We can do this cleanly." Cleanly. That word lands like a slap. Tsunade shifts her stance, anchoring her feet. Naruto is held tight, but not crushingly. She's a medic. She knows how fragile he is. And still, she also knows, if they touch him, she will break bones until there's nothing left to touch with. Dog Mask moves. Fast. Not a friendly step. A lunge. Bird Mask follows half a beat behind, cutting off Tsunade's side. They are coordinated, trained together. A practiced extraction. Tsunade's chakra surges controlled, sharp, and she pivots, turning her shoulder to shield Naruto as her free hand snaps forward. She doesn't throw a wide punch. Wide punches are for show. She drives her palm into Dog Mask's chest with precise force. The impact pops like a drum. Dog Mask flies backward, skidding across the courtyard stones, leaving a thin trail of cracked rock behind. Bird Mask doesn't hesitate. Bird Mask goes for Naruto. Tsunade's heart drops into her stomach, and that is the moment Naruto feels her fear. His chakra spikes. The vines at the window whip outward like living ropes, snapping toward Bird Mask with a speed that is too fast for something that isn't supposed to think. Bird Mask twists, barely avoiding being bound, but the vines still lash his arm, tearing fabric, leaving green scratches that bleed. Bird Mask curses, one sharp sound, and leaps back. Dog Mask is already rising, shaking off the hit. That tells Tsunade something. They expected her strength. They came prepared. Dog Mask's hand flicks, and a small canister hits the ground, rolling, hissing. A muffling smoke. Not poison, not explosive. A sound-dampening field in vapor form, designed to keep the fight quiet, so nobody hears, so nobody comes, so the village can pretend nothing happened. Tsunade's eyes burn. Naruto whimpers once, and the estate responds again. A wooden ridge rises from the ground like a spine, bending up to form a barrier between Tsunade and the entrance. The courtyard is turning into a living cage, protective and dangerous. Because the more Mokuton manifests, the louder the message becomes. Dog Mask throws a kunai at the ridge, not to break it. Testing it. The kunai sinks into the wood like it's soft, then the wood swallows it, closing around the blade as if eating it. Dog Mask pauses. Even through the mask, Tsunade can feel the operative's recalculation. Bird Mask raises a hand. A signal. Tsunade's stomach twists. There are more. A shadow drops from the roofline. Another masked figure, this one wearing a boar mask, landing behind Tsunade. Tsunade feels it a heartbeat before it happens. She turns, already moving. But the boar mask operative throws something small and bright. A flash tag. The courtyard becomes white. Naruto cries out, startled, and Tsunade's eyes squeeze shut from instinctive pain. For a split second she can't see. In that split second, hands reach. Not for her son. Tsunade's entire body goes cold. Then it becomes fire. She twists, turning her torso, forcing Naruto tight against her shoulder as her elbow slams backward. She doesn't need vision for that. The elbow connects with something hard, mask, jaw, teeth. Boar Mask grunts and stumbles, grip failing. Tsunade opens her eyes as the flash fades. Her vision is blurry, but she sees enough. Dog Mask coming in again from the front. Bird Mask circling right. Boar mask recovering behind her. 3 angles, 3 hands, 1 baby, and Tsunade realizes this isn't a test anymore, this is a grab. A clean, quiet grab. And if they succeed, Naruto will vanish into a basement that doesn't exist on official maps. She breathes in. Then she makes a choice that is less strategy and more truth. She stops trying to keep it small. Her chakra flares. Not wild, purposeful. The ground answers. Wood erupts from beneath the courtyard stones in thick, twisting roots, splitting rock like dried clay. A ring of wooden pillars rises around the attackers, not trapping Tsunade, trapping them. Bird Mask tries to leap up and out. A branch lashes, catching his ankle mid-air, yanking him down, slamming him into the ground. Dog Mask throws another canister, this one darker, thicker. A suppressant. The vapor hits the wood and the wood resists. It trembles like it's fighting to stay alive. Boar Mask forms seals. A slicing wind jutsu bursts forward, trying to sever the roots. The wind cuts wood, yes. But the wood regrows in the same motion, thickening, reinforcing, like it's learning. Tsunade's eyes flick to Naruto. He's screaming now high, frightened, angry at the brightness and noise and hands. And every scream makes the Mokuton stronger. Every tear makes it grow. Tsunade forces herself to soften her voice through the chaos. Shh, she whispers into his hair. It's okay, look at me. Naruto's eyes, wet and bright, lock onto her face. His crying hiccups. The wood steadies. In that 1 second, Tsunade sees it clearly. He isn't controlling it like a shinobi controls a jutsu. He's steering it like a harpy. She shifts her stance again, and her free hand moves, fast, surgical. She doesn't throw kunai, she strikes nerve points. Dog Mask charges, Tsunade sidesteps, and drives her fingers into a spot below the collarbone. Precise, brutal. Dog Mask's arm goes numb. The kunai drops. Bird Mask tries to rise. Tsunade's heel snaps into his wrist, disarming him. Boar Mask lunges, desperate. Tsunade catches his forearm and twists, joints grinding. Boar Mask hisses in pain, and Tsunade leans close enough for him to hear her through the muffling field. I am not the village, she says softly. I am not your policy. I am not your experiment. Her eyes harden into something ancient. Touch my child again. Then she drives her knee into his ribs. Boar Mask collapses, breath knocked out. Bird Mask struggles against the branch binding him, and Dog Mask tries to crawl backward, reaching for a seal tag. Tsunade inhales, steadying herself. This isn't enough, because even if she breaks them, someone else will come. Because the problem isn't these operatives, it's the order behind them. And somewhere, someone is already writing another mission. A narrator's insight presses into the moment, quiet but undeniable. People think the danger is the attacker in front of you. But the real danger is the idea that sent them. Because ideas don't bleed. They don't get tired, and they don't stop just because you win one fight. Tsunade's gaze snaps to the side gate again. She expects more shadows. Instead, she sees Kakashi appear, silent, like he stepped out of the air itself. His eye takes in the scene in one sweep. The broken courtyard, the living wood, the masked operatives pinned and wheezing. Tsunade holding Naruto like he's the last good thing left in the world. Kakashi doesn't ask if she's okay. He knows she isn't. He speaks one sentence, clipped. Hokage-sama is coming. Tsunade's jaw tightens. Good. Kakashi moves to Dog Mask first, pressing 2 fingers to the operative's neck, checking for hidden poison, hidden seal tags, hidden death. Then, Kakashi looks at Tsunade's Mokuton ring. The branch is still tense. His voice lowers. It's getting harder to hide, he says. Tsunade's mouth twists. I noticed. Naruto hiccups again, soft, exhausted. The wood shivers, then begins to slow. Not disappearing, settling. Like it knows it's done its job for now. Hiruzen arrives minutes later, but in a village, minutes are long enough for lives to change. He comes with 2 trusted A and BU ones. Tsunade recognizes by stance, by chakra, by the subtle way they keep their hands visible. Not root, Hiruzen steps into the courtyard and freezes. He sees the wood, the shattered stone, the operatives. His face tightens, and the tired old man disappears. What remains is the Hokage. He looks at Dog Mask. Remove your mask, he orders. Dog Mask doesn't move. Hiruzen's voice turns colder. Now. Kakashi presses his blade closer. Dog Mask's hand twitches toward the poison tooth again. Kakashi's grip tightens. Don't, he says, voice flat. Dog Mask exhales, then slowly removes the mask. It's a young man, maybe 20, eyes too empty for his age. He doesn't look proud. He looks programmed. Hiruzen's gaze hardens. Name, he demands. The young man's lips part, and for a moment Tsunade thinks he won't answer. Then he says, monotone, no name. Root. Hiruzen's jaw tightens. He turns to Bird Mask next. Bird Mask's mask comes off. Another young face. Another dead stare. Boar Mask too. 3 children grown into weapons and told they are nothing but function. Hiruzen's expression is pain for a heartbeat. Then it hardens again because pain doesn't protect the baby. Hiruzen looks at Tsunade, voice quiet. They came for him. Tsunade's eyes blaze. They came to steal him. Hiruzen's gaze flicks to the wood ring. And he defended himself, he whispers. Tsunade's voice is acid. Don't you dare, she says. Don't you dare turn this into some inspiring village story about a gifted child protecting Konoha. Hiruzen flinches because she's right. He steps closer, eyes locked on Naruto. Naruto's eyes are half closed now, exhausted, tiny fingers still gripping Tsunade's collar like the fabric is a lifeline. Hiruzen's voice drops. Tsunade, he says, I gave an order. Tsunade's laugh is short and humorless, and he ignored it. Hiruzen's eyes narrow. Danzo, he says, like the name tastes like ash. Tsunade doesn't answer. She doesn't need to. Kakashi speaks instead, voice controlled. Root, he confirms, extraction attempt. Hiruzen's face goes rigid. He turns slightly, gesturing to his ANBU. Secure them, he orders, alive. The ANBU move instantly, binding the operatives with seals that restrict chakra. The root operatives don't fight. They accept capture like it's just another task completed. That chills Tsunade more than any struggle would, because it means they expected to be disposable. Hiruzen turns back to Tsunade. I will handle this, he says. Tsunade's eyes are sharp. You'll try, she corrects. Hiruzen's shoulders sink slightly, then straighten. Yes, he says, I will try, and this time I will make it hurt. Tsunade holds his gaze, searching for weakness. She finds none, only weariness and steel. But weariness is not enough. Tsunade speaks softly, each word hammered. He is my son, she says. Not your symbol, not your asset, not your justification. Hiruzen nods slowly. Agreed. Tsunade's voice tightens. Then prove it. Hiruzen turns and leaves the estate with the root operatives in chains. But before he steps through the gate, he pauses and looks over his shoulder. Tsunade, he says quietly. She doesn't answer. His gaze flicks to Naruto again, and for a moment his voice is almost gentle. I am sorry, he says, and then he walks away into the night. Tsunade stands in the ruined courtyard, the wood still half-grown around her like protective ribs. Kakashi remains beside her, silent. Naruto stirs faintly, then relaxes again as Tsunade's breathing steadies. The estate is quiet now, but Tsunade doesn't feel safe. She feels hunted. Kakashi's voice is quiet. He'll come back, he says. Danzo. Tsunade's jaw tightens. I know. Kakashi hesitates. You can't fight the entire village, he says. Tsunade's eyes flick to him, sharp, tired. I'm not fighting the village, she says. I'm fighting the part of it that thinks it can own people. Kakashi's eyes soften slightly. That part doesn't die easily, he admits. Tsunade looks down at Naruto. Then I'll keep killing it, she says, voice low, until it learns. Kakashi watches her for a long moment. Then he says something that is not an order, not advice, more like a confession. If you leave, he says quietly, they'll call you a traitor. Tsunade doesn't flinch. Let them. Kakashi's voice stays steady. And if you stay, he says, they'll keep coming. Tsunade's throat tightens because he's right. Her eyes drift to the broken stones, to the wood that saved them, to the quiet night beyond the gates. She thinks of the war ending and how it felt wrong. She thinks of how peace is just a different battlefield. A narrator's insight slides in, heavy and intimate. Grief changes people in obvious ways. It makes them cry. It makes them scream. It makes them drink. But sometimes grief changes people by making them refuse to lose again. And refusal can look like love. Or it can look like war. Often, it's both. Tsunade takes Naruto inside, away from the courtyard, away from the shattered stone, away from the proof that the village tried to steal her baby. She lays him in his cradle and sits beside him, watching his chest rise and fall. Kakashi takes a position near the door, silent sentinel. Hours pass. Naruto sleeps. Tsunade does it. Just before dawn, Jiraiya returns. He arrives like a storm-barely contained, dusty cloak. Eyes sharp, jaw tight. He sees the ruined courtyard through the gate and freezes. His gaze snaps to Tsunade, then to Naruto. Tell me, he says, voice low, that I'm hallucinating. Tsunade stands slowly, exhaustion sitting heavy in her bones. They came, she says. Jiraiya's hands curl into fists. Danzo. Tsunade nods once. Jiraiya's face twists, something ugly and honest breaking through his usual swagger. I left for one night, he says, voice rough. One night. Tsunade's eyes are tired but hard, and they moved, she says, because they were always going to. Jiraiya steps closer to Naruto's cradle, looking down at the sleeping child like he's trying to memorize him again, just in case. His voice softens. He's okay? Tsunade nods. He defended himself. Jiraiya's gaze flicks to the remnants of wood still curled around window frames like ribs. His stomach turns. It's getting stronger. Tsunade's voice is quiet. Yes. Jiraiya swallows. then looks at Tsunade with a kind of fierce devotion that makes her chest ache. "We move," he says immediately. Tsunade doesn't answer right away, because moving means admitting home isn't safe. Moving means choosing uncertainty over the illusion of security. But staying means waiting for the next hand to reach. Tsunade looks at Naruto. She hears his earlier cry in her memory, the sharp, frightened sound. Her jaw tightens. "We don't run," she says. Jiraiya's brow furrows. "This isn't running," he argues. This is surviving," she finishes, voice cold. "And I agree, but we don't run without purpose." Jiraiya's gaze locks on hers. "Then, what's the purpose?" Tsunade's eyes narrow, mind moving. "We make it impossible for them to take him quietly," she says. "We make every attempt loud, public, recorded." Jiraiya snorts softly. Danzo doesn't care about public. He cares about leverage, Tsunade says. And witnesses remove leverage. Kakashi speaks for the first time in hours. Hokage-sama will confront him. Tsunade's laugh is tired, and Danzo will smile and explain why he had to. Jiraiya's expression hardens. "Then we cut the snakehead." Tsunade's eyes flash. "And fracture the village in the process," she says. Jiraiya doesn't flinch. Better than letting them take Naruto. Tsunade's gaze drops to Naruto again. Her voice turns softer, but no less determined. "We need allies," she says. "Not just muscle, people who will stand in front of Danzo when he speaks." Jiraiya's eyes sharpen. "Who?" Tsunade inhales. "The Uchiha." Jiraiya blinks. "That's your plan?" "Ask the clan that already feels sidelined to protect the Senju heir." Tsunade's mouth tightens. "They know what it means to be feared," she says. "They know what it means to be watched." Kakashi's eyes shift slightly, thoughtful. Jiraiya exhales slowly. "That's not the worst idea," he admits. Tsunade continues, voice low. "We also need to control Naruto's Mokuton," she says. "Not suppress it, guide it. If he keeps flaring like this, he'll become a beacon." Jiraiya's expression turns grim. "And Orochimaru will follow the beacon." Tsunade's eyes burn at the name. "Yes." Jiraiya steps closer to Tsunade, voice dropping into something intimate. "We can't teach him control as a baby," he says. Tsunade's lips press together. "No," she agrees. "But we can teach ourselves." Jiraiya frowns. "What do you mean?" Tsunade's gaze is steady. He responds to emotion, she says. To fear. To need. To stress. Jiraiya's expression shifts. Tsunade continues. "If we want him safe," she says, "we become calm." Jiraiya lets out a short laugh that is almost disbelief. "Lady, you're asking me to be calm." Tsunade's eyes flick to him, dry. "Try not to faint." He snorts, but his gaze softens. "Okay," he says, quieter. "We'll learn." A small sound from the cradle. Naruto stirs, eyes blinking open. He looks up at Tsunade first, then at Jiraiya, tiny mouth opening into a half yawn. For a moment, the world feels almost normal. Then Naruto's gaze drifts past them, toward the corner of the room. His tiny brow furrows. And the air changes. Tsunade feels it before she sees it. A pressure. A subtle shift in chakra, like the room just gained an extra heartbeat. Kakashi's posture tightens instantly. Jiraiya's hand moves toward a seal tag. Tsunade's breath catches. Because the sapling by the bed, which she thought had settled days ago, begins to tremble. Leaves rustle softly, not from wind, from attention. Naruto stares at the corner, eyes wide and unblinking. And then, in that corner, the shadow thickens. It isn't a person stepping out of hiding. It's a presence, a technique, something watching to the wall. A small paper slip is pinned to the wooden beam near the window, something that wasn't there a moment ago. Tsunade's eyes narrow. Jiraiya steps forward, careful, and plucks the paper free. It's a message, no signature, just a few words written neatly. Jiraiya reads it aloud, voice low. "Every tree can be cut." Tsunade's blood goes cold. Because that isn't Danzo. Danzo wouldn't write poetry. That is someone else. Someone who understands Mokuton like a puzzle. Someone who thinks in scalpels and experiments. Someone who would feel Naruto's chakra flare like a scent on the wind and smile. Tsunade's jaw tightens. "Orochimaru," she whispers. Naruto makes a small, confused sound, sensing her tension. The sapling trembles harder, leaves shaking like frightened hands. Jiraiya's face hardens into something lethal. "He's close," he says. Kakashi's eye narrows. "Or he has eyes in the village," he says. Tsunade's grip tightens around the edge of the cradle. Her voice is quiet, but it shakes with fury. "He found us," she says. And in that moment, Tsunade realizes the truth she's been trying not to face. Danzo isn't the only predator circling her son. He's just the one wearing Konoha's uniform. Somewhere beyond the walls, a snake is smiling. And part 3 ends the way storms begin, with a single cold sentence that turns the air into a warning. Orochimaru doesn't need to be standing outside the walls to feel the tremor. That's the part people misunderstand about monsters like him. They don't hunt with their eyes, they hunt with patterns. A surge of chakra. A rumor spoken too loudly. A mission report filed under the wrong tag. A medic who goes home pale and distracted and tells a spouse, and the spouse tells a friend, and the friend tells a cousin in the records department. A village is a living thing, and living things leak. Tsunade stares at the paper slip like it's venomous. Every tree can be cut. It's almost elegant, almost respectful, which somehow makes it worse. Jiraiya holds the note between two fingers as if it might bite him. His expression is a kind of still fury, quiet enough to be controlled, sharp enough to carve stone. Kakashi's single visible eye doesn't widen, it doesn't flinch, it just goes colder. Naruto, tiny and newly awake, makes a soft sound in his cradle. Not a cry yet, not fear yet. Confusion. A baby's confusion is dangerous in a room like this, because confusion can turn into distress, and distress turns the air green. Tsunade forces her shoulders to drop. She makes her voice soft, even as her heart hammers. "It's okay," she whispers, more for herself than for him. "It's okay." Naruto's gaze flicks to her face, and the sapling steadies a fraction, leaves trembling less. Jiraiya folds the note once, slowly. "He's inside," he says. Tsunade's jaw clenches. Or he has a hand inside. Kakashi's voice is even. Either way, he says, the message is meant to do one thing. Tsunade looks at him. "What?" Kakashi's eye meets hers. "Make you move," he says. "Make you react. Make you leave the positions you've hardened." Tsunade exhales, sharp. Because that's exactly what it does. Fear makes people flee. Rage makes people charge. Orochimaru prefers either, because both are predictable. A narrator's truth settles over the room like a weight. The most dangerous enemies don't attack your body first. They attack your choices. They push you toward the move you were already afraid you'd have to make. So that when you make it, it feels like it was your idea. Tsunade's eyes flick to Naruto again. He's the only one in this room without a plan, and somehow, he's the one shaping all of theirs. Jiraiya turns toward the window, scanning rooftops. "We tightened security." Kakashi shakes his head slightly. "We already did," he says. "They still came." Tsunade's voice is low. "Then we change what securities means." Jiraiya looks at her. "What are you thinking?" Tsunade inhales slowly, choosing each word like she's stitching a wound. "We stopped treating this like a series of break-ins," she says. "This is a campaign. Danzo. Orochimaru. Maybe both. The only question is, who reaches him first?" Jiraiya's face darkens. And which one is worse? Tsunade doesn't answer, because the answer is poison either way. Danzo will call it protection while he cages Naruto. Orochimaru will call it science while he takes Naruto apart. Kakashi speaks quietly. "Hokage-sama confronted Danzo at dawn," he says. Tsunade's eyes narrow. "How do you know?" "I was there," Kakashi says. Jiraiya's posture tightens. "And?" Kakashi's eye doesn't flicker. "Danzo denied ordering it," he says. "He blamed a rogue element within Root, claimed he was already investigating." Tsunade's laugh is so sharp it feels like glass breaking. "A rogue element," she repeats. "Within an organization that exists solely to obey him." Kakashi's voice stays neutral. "Hokage-sama ordered Root disbanded," he says. Jiraiya exhales through his nose, and Danzo smiled. Kakashi pauses just long enough to confirm it without words. Tsunade's hands curl into fists. The urge to punch something rises, hot and immediate, but she forces herself to unclench. Because she remembers her own rule now, if she spikes, Naruto spikes. If she breaks, the world grows teeth. Tsunade leans over Naruto's cradle and brushes his cheek with her knuckles. Gentle. Naruto blinks up at her, then reaches and grabs her finger with shocking strength for his size, like he's anchoring himself. Tsunade's throat tightens. "Listen," she murmurs to him, though he can't understand. "You're going to hear people call you a gift." Naruto stares. "You're not," she whispers. "You're a person." Behind her, Jiraiya and Kakashi exchange a glance. Jiraiya's voice drops. "We need to get ahead of Orochimaru." Tsunade straightens, eyes hard. "We need to find him." Jiraiya nods. "I have leads," he says. "Old contacts. Smugglers. People who owe me favors and hate snakes." Shikakashi's eye narrows. "And if he's already inside the village?" Jiraiya's jaw tightens. "Then we flush him out." Tsunade's voice is cold. "How?" Jiraiya looks at the sapling, then at Naruto. His expression turns grim with the kind of thought he hates having. "We use a lure," he admits. Tsunade's gaze snaps to him like a blade. "No." Jiraiya holds up a hand quickly. "Not Naruto," he says. "Not directly. But we can stage a false movement, a false transfer. Make it look like you're moving him somewhere vulnerable, somewhere outside the walls." Kakashi's eye sharpens. "A decoy convoy." Tsunade's voice is iron. "And when Orochimaru takes the bait, you strike." Jiraiya nods. "Yes." Tsunade stares at him, weighing the risk. Because the danger of bait is this, predators don't always bite the hook. Sometimes they bite the hand holding it. She looks at Naruto again, so small, so loud in the chakra world. Tsunade's stomach twists, and she tastes the old fear again, the fear that made her leave the village years ago. The fear of losing someone because she stayed. But she promised herself she wouldn't run anymore. She promised herself she would choose a different kind of courage. Fine, she says finally, but we do it with layers. Jiraiya's brow lifts. Layers. Tsunade turns, eyes sharp. One decoy visible, she says. One real movement hidden. And one trap no one knows about except us. Kakashi's eye studies her. You're planning like a Hokage. Tsunade's mouth tightens. I'm planning like a mother. The first diamond scene begins the next day, and it happens without ceremony. Because the most important vows are rarely spoken under spotlights, Tsunade goes to the Hokage Tower alone. Naruto is left with a trusted medic in a sealed room, watched by Kakashi and 2 ANBU. Tsunade personally selects people she can read like open books. When Tsunade enters the Hokage's office, Hiruzen is already waiting. He looks exhausted, like he hasn't slept since the attempt. His pipe is unlit. Tsunade stands before his desk, hands steady, voice calm. Hokage-sama, she says. Hiruzen's eyes lift. Tsunade. She doesn't sit. She doesn't soften. I want authority, she says. Hiruzen's brows knit. Authority. Tsunade steps closer. Over Naruto's protection, she says. Over the teams assigned. Over the records. Over his medical files. Over his movements. Everything. Hiruzen studies her for a long moment. You're asking to become his official guardian in more than name, he says softly. You're asking to override the council. Tsunade's gaze doesn't waver. Yes. Hiruzen exhales. They will resist. Let them, Tsunade says. Hiruzen's voice is gentle, but there's steel in it too. And Danzo? Tsunade's eyes turn cold. Danzo is already acting, she says. This is not about whether he will. It's about whether you will let him. Hiruzen's face tightens. I told you I would enforce. You tried to enforce, Tsunade corrects. And last night, Root stood in my courtyard with a muffling field and extraction tools. Hiruzen's shoulders sag slightly. Tsunade's voice lowers, quieter but more dangerous. Orochimaru left a message, she says. She places the folded note on the desk. Hiruzen's eyes flick to it. His fingers hover, then he opens it. He reads. His jaw tightens. For a moment the office is silent except for the faint scratch of paper. Hiruzen looks up. He's close, he murmurs. He's interested, Tsunade corrects, and interest like his becomes action. Hiruzen closes his eyes briefly, then opens them, gaze hardening like old stone. You want authority, he repeats. Tsunade nods once. Hiruzen reaches for a scroll. He pulls it closer, unrolls it, and begins to write. His brush moves with decisive strokes. This will not make you popular, he says without looking up. Tsunade's mouth twists. I didn't come here to be popular. Hiruzen seals the document with his thumbprint and chakra. Then he slides it across the desk. Tsunade reads it once. The words are heavy and official. She feels something tighten in her chest, not pride, responsibility. Because now, this isn't just her personal fight, it's documented, witnessed. And that means if she fails, the village won't be able to pretend it didn't happen. Hiruzen watches her carefully. This puts you on a collision course with the elders, he warns. Tsunade looks up. Then they can learn what it feels like to lose control. Hiruzen's eyes hold hers. Then he says quietly, You look like your grandfather. Tsunade's throat tightens. She hates that comparison. Because Hashirama's legend is a shadow that eats people alive. But she also knows what Hiruzen really means. Not the power. The stubbornness. The refusal to let fear be the final decision. Tsunade rolls the document, tucks it into her sleeve. Thank you, she says, voice clipped. Hiruzen's gaze softens for a heartbeat. Bring him by, he says quietly. Soon. Not for the village. For me. Tsunade hesitates, then nods once. Then she turns and leaves. Outside the tower, the village sun is bright and indifferent, and Tsunade walks through it with the weight of a child's future pressed against her ribs like a second heartbeat. 700 steps later, she feels eyes on her. Not normal eyes. Eyes that don't blink in crowds. She doesn't turn. She doesn't give them the satisfaction. She simply keeps walking and notes the pattern of footsteps behind her, the way the crowd parts too smoothly, the way shadows shift. Kakashi's voice murmurs in her mind. Predictable. She thinks of Orochimaru's note. Every tree can be cut. And Tsunade thinks grimly, then let him try. That afternoon, the decoy convoy is prepared. It's loud on purpose. A small procession, an unmarked carriage, 2 ANBU, a medic, a Jonin escort, and a route that accidentally passes close to a gate and then toward a forest road. The kind of movement that makes spies lick their lips. but it's empty. Inside the carriage, there is only a bundle of cloth packed with weighted sand, sealed with a faint chakra signature designed to mimic a baby's sleeping aura. A trick, yes, but a clean one. Because Tsunade refuses to use Naruto himself as bait, Naruto stays behind, deep in the estate. In a reinforced room with seals layered like armor, Kakashi stands guard. Jiraiya is not at the convoy. That's part of the plan too. If Orochimaru is watching, he expects the loudest hero to be present. Instead, Jiraiya moves unseen along the route's edges, ready to strike from the dark. Tsunade stays close to Naruto, not because she is afraid, because she refuses to leave him alone again. As the convoy rolls out, she feels the village tension rise. People don't know why, but they sense movement. Shinobi are like animals that way. They smell change. Tsunade watches Naruto sleep, and she tries to calm her breathing. She tries to quiet her mind. She tries not to imagine hands reaching. A narrator's insight drops into the quiet like a stone into water. Parents don't become brave because they stop being afraid. They become brave because fear loses the argument. Because when you look at something small that depends on you, your own survival stops being your priority. Naruto makes a soft sound in his sleep and grips at the air. A tiny vine curls up from the floor near the cradle and wraps around the leg like a sleeping cat. Tsunade watches it, heart tight. If he grows without guidance, the world will feel his footsteps like an earthquake. If he grows with guidance, he might become something different. Not a weapon, a protector, a builder, a healer of forests instead of bodies. But first, he has to survive the people who want to turn him into a trophy. A knock at the estate door. Kakashi's voice comes from the hallway, calm but alert. Visitor. Tsunade stiffens. Who? Kakashi pauses. Uchiha, he says. Tsunade's pulse jumps, not with fear, with calculation. She stands and moves toward the front room, leaving Naruto behind the sealed door. Kakashi meets her at the hallway intersection. His eye is sharp. Do you want them inside, he asks. Tsunade inhales. Yes, she says, but not near Naruto. Kakashi nods and disappears to position himself where he can see every entrance. Tsunade opens the estate door and finds Uchiha Fugaku standing there with two escorts. Fugaku's expression is controlled, formal, but his eyes dark, watchful take in the estate's new security like he's reading a battlefield map. He bows slightly. Lady Tsunade. Tsunade doesn't bow. She doesn't need to. She gestures him in. The Uchiha escorts remain near the doorway, hands relaxed but ready. Fugaku follows Tsunade into the sitting room. He doesn't waste time. I heard, he says quietly. Tsunade's eyes narrow. Rumors. Fugaku's gaze stays steady. The village is built on rumors, he says. Tsunade studies him. Why are you here? She asks bluntly. Fugaku's jaw tightens a fraction. Because I know what it means to be watched, he says. And because if Danzo is bold enough to move against you, he will move against anyone. Tsunade's lips press together. Fugaku continues, voice low. He calls it loyalty, he says. We call it suspicion. Tsunade leans back slightly, arms crossed. You want to help, she says. Fugaku nods once. I want balance, he corrects. If a child is being treated like a resource, the village loses itself. Tsunade's gaze sharpens. Why would you care about a Senju child, she asks. Your clan has never benefited from the Senju legacy. Fugaku's eyes flicker just a heartbeat. Then he says the honest thing, and it lands heavier than any compliment. Because one day, he says quietly, they will come for mine. Tsunade's chest tightens. She understands that fear. She understands it too well. The two of them sit in silence for a moment, two leaders on different sides of a village's old cracks, staring at the same future. Then Tsunade speaks, voice low. I don't need political speeches, she says. I need bodies. Fugaku's expression doesn't change. Then you will have them, he says. Tsunade narrows her eyes. At what cost? Fugaku's gaze is calm. Truth, he says. No hidden deals. No secret chains. You treat my people like allies, not like tools. Tsunade's mouth twists. You speaking to the wrong woman if you think I like tools. Fugaku's lips twitch slightly, so I've heard. Tsunade exhales slowly. Fine, she says. Quiet rotation. Discreet. No banners, no announcements. Fugaku nods. Agreed. He stands, and before he leaves, he pauses, looking at Tsunade like he's weighing her. Lady Tsunade, he says quietly. What? If the village forces you to choose between protecting him and obeying it, Fugaku says, what will you do? Tsunade's eyes harden instantly. I will protect him, she says, and the village can survive my disobedience. Fugaku studies her for a long moment. Then he bows slightly again and leaves. As soon as the door closes, Kakashi appears in the hallway like he was never gone. His eye studies Tsunade. That was risky. Tsunade's voice is flat. So is breathing. Kakashi doesn't argue. because he knows she's right. A little later, the mid-roll line slips in naturally, like a breath between heartbeats. And if you're still here, good, because this is exactly where people stop thinking it's just politics and start realizing it's survival. Outside the walls, the decoy convoy reaches the forest road. The sun is lowering, the trees are tall, shadows lengthen, and the air cools. Jiraiya moves through the canopy parallel to the convoy, silent as a predator, eyes scanning for unnatural stillness. The ANBU escort keeps the carriage steady, posture relaxed but senses sharpened. Everything looks normal. And that's the problem. Because Orochimaru doesn't strike when things are loud, he strikes when things are calm. A question forms in Jiraiya's mind. Slow and dangerous. If I were him, where would I strike? He answers it immediately. Not on the road. Not in the open. He would strike where the convoy thinks it's safe, where it pauses, where it relaxes, where the guard's shoulders drop a fraction. And right on cue, the convoy slows near a shallow creek crossing. The wheels must navigate slick stones. The horses snort. The medic beside the carriage mutters a complaint. Jiraiya's eyes narrow. He smells something wrong. Not blood, not smoke. Something sterile. Like a laboratory after it's been cleaned. A figure steps out from behind a tree on the far bank. Not masked, not hiding, just standing there like he belongs in the forest. Long black hair, pale skin, golden eyes that look amused by the entire world. Orochimaru. He smiles as the convoy halts instinctively, ANBU snapping into defensive stance. Well, Orochimaru says softly, voice smooth as cold water, how careful you've become. The ANBU don't answer. They form seals. Orochimaru's gaze flicks to the carriage. His smile widens slightly. Is that him? He asks, almost politely. The little miracle. Jiraiya's muscles tighten in the canopy. The plan worked. He showed. But the second question rises like a blade. Did he show alone? Orochimaru lifts one hand, palm open, like he's greeting old friends. I don't want to hurt anyone, he says, voice gentle enough to be terrifying. I only want what Konoha refuses to appreciate. The ANBU nearest him lunges. Orochimaru doesn't move like a man dodging. He moves like a snake slipping out of a net. The ANBU's blade passes through empty air. Orochimaru's fingers touch the ANBU's wrist lightly, and the ANBU collapses instantly, body limp, eyes wide paralyzed. The medic stumbles back, choking on panic. Orochimaru's gaze slides to the carriage again. Such fuss, he murmurs, over something so simple. Jiraiya moves. He drops from the canopy like a falling star, landing between Orochimaru and the carriage with a heavy thud. The ground cracks slightly. Orochimaru's eyes widen just a fraction, pleased. Jiraiya, he says warmly. Of course. Jiraiya's voice is low, lethal. Step away from the carriage. Orochimaru's smile doesn't fade. Is that where he is? He asks, head tilting. Or is that where you want me to think he is? Jiraiya's stomach tightens. Because Orochimaru is already looking past the obvious. Already probing the lie. Already hunting the truth inside the decoy. Jiraiya's hand moves, seals flashing. You're not taking him, he says. Orochimaru laughs softly. Taking, he repeats. Such a vulgar word. His gaze sharpens, and the smile becomes a scalpel. I prefer saving, he says. From ignorance, from politics, from sentimental people who think love is enough. Jiraiya's eyes burn. Love is exactly why you'll never win, he says. Orochimaru's eyes glint. Love is exactly why you're easy to manipulate, he replies. And then Orochimaru moves, not toward Jiraiya, toward the carriage. A feint. Jiraiya reacts instantly, blocking with a barrier. Orochimaru stops a hair's breadth from it, fingers hovering, then withdraws as if he's touched something unpleasant. He smiles. Interesting, he murmurs. The barrier isn't just chakra, it's layered with medical seals, Tsunade's work. Orochimaru's eyes flicker with something like admiration. How clever, he whispers. You're learning. Jiraiya's voice is cold. Leave. Orochimaru's gaze lifts to the trees, as if listening to something far away. Then he speaks softly. You know, he says, I used to think the Senju gift was gone because the world couldn't handle it. He looks at Jiraiya again. Now I think it simply waited, he continues. For a vessel that would make everyone desperate. Jiraiya's jaw tightens. You're not getting him. Orochimaru's smile widens again, and his voice drops into something almost intimate. Perhaps not today, he says. Jiraiya's eyes narrow. What does that mean? Orochimaru's gaze flicks to the paralyzed ANBU, then to the frightened medic, then back to Jiraiya. It means, Orochimaru says softly, I didn't come here to steal the child. Jiraiya's blood goes cold, because that's the worst possible sentence. Orochimaru continues, voice calm. I came here, he says, to confirm which lie you chose. Jiraiya's breath catches. Orochimaru's eyes gleam. And now I know, he whispers. A beat. Then Orochimaru lifts 2 fingers and presses them to his own tongue, tasting the air like a serpent. Your decoy smells like sand, he says lightly. Not blood. Jiraya's hand twitches toward another seal. Orochimaru steps back, smiling like he's already won something. Don't worry, he says. I'm not angry. In fact, I'm impressed. He tilts his head. But you should understand, he adds, voice turning colder, that every time you hide him, you teach me how you hide. Jiraya's eyes blaze. You won't touch him. Orochimaru's smile becomes thin. We'll see, he says. And then, without warning, the forest behind Jiraiya ripples, not with wind, with chakra. Jiraiya spins, too late. A second figure appears at the edge of the clearing, cloaked, face half hidden, posture familiar in the worst way. A root operative, not one of the ones captured, a new one, and in their hands, a small sealed jar. Inside the jar, floating in clear liquid, is something pale, a fragment of tissue, a sample. Orochimaru's eyes soften with delight. Ah, he murmurs. There it is. Jiraiya's throat tightens. What did you do? Orochimaru's gaze meets his, and the answer lands like a blade sliding between ribs. I don't need the child, Orochimaru says softly. Not yet. He gestures lightly toward the jar. I only need enough of him, he continues, to begin. Jiraiya's blood turns to ice, because if Orochimaru has a sample, then the war for Naruto just changed shape. It's no longer only about kidnapping. It's about replication, about building something in the dark that will come crawling out later. Jiraiya moves, lunging toward the root operative. But Orochimaru's hand snaps up, and the forest floor beneath Jiraiya erupts, not with wood, with snakes. Dozens of them bursting from hidden holes like living blades, tangling around Jiraiya's legs, slowing him for a heartbeat, just one heartbeat. And that heartbeat is enough. The root operative vanishes in a flicker. Orochimaru steps back into the trees, smile lingering like a curse. His voice drifts through the leaves as he disappears. Tell Tsunade, he calls softly, that I will return the gift she thinks belongs only to her. Jiraiya tears free of the snakes, furious. But Orochimaru is gone. The clearing is quiet again. The paralyzed ANBU lies on the ground, eyes wide, breathing shallow. The medic is shaking, trying not to scream. Jiraiya stands alone, chest heaving, staring into the forest like he can burn it down with his gaze. And in the distance, as the sun finally dips below the horizon, the air feels wrong. Because the question that matters now isn't whether Orochimaru will try to take Naruto. It's whether Orochimaru already has enough of him to create something that will hunt Naruto for the rest of his life. Jiraiya clenches his fists until his knuckles ache. Then he turns toward the village with a single thought pounding in his skull. He has to get back. He has to warn Tsunade. Because if a sample is already loose in the dark, then part 4 ends on the worst kind of cliffhanger. Not an attack you can punch, not an enemy you can see, but a possibility growing in secret, waiting to be born. Jiraiya gets back to the village like the road owes him time. He doesn't stop at the gates. He doesn't flirt with the guards. He doesn't crack a joke to pretend his ribs aren't filled with ice. He vaults the wall instead, landing on a rooftop and sprinting across tiles that clack under his sandals. Konoha is quiet at this hour, the kind of quiet that usually means safety. Tonight, it just means people don't know they're being hunted. He keeps moving, throat tight, eyes scanning for anything that feels wrong. A flicker in a window, a chakra signature out of place, a familiar shadow that shouldn't exist anymore. All he can hear is Orochimaru's voice in the leaves. I don't need the child. Not yet. I only need enough of him to begin. And the worst part is what that sentence implies. It means the war has already crossed the threshold that can't be uncrossed. Because you can kill a kidnapper, you can punch a conspirator. But how do you kill an idea once it's been grown in a jar? Jiraiya lands at the Senju estate and feels the seals before he even touches the ground. Tsunade's work. Layered, clean, angry in its precision. The air tastes like medicine and warning. Kakashi appears in front of him without sound, like the house itself birthed him. One eye, no wasted motion. You're back, Kakashi says. Jiraiya doesn't slow. Where is she? Kakashi's gaze sharpens. Inside, he says, with Naruto. Jiraiya pushes past him. He finds Tsunade in the nursery, standing over the cradle like she's guarding the last light in the world. Naruto sleeps with his cheek pressed against the blanket, tiny fists curled by his face like he's still ready to fight in his dreams. The sapling in the corner is no longer small. It's taller now, thicker, as if the house has decided to grow a spine. Tsunade looks up when Jiraiya enters. One glance at his face, and her expression changes. Not into understanding. Into understanding. Because they've lived too long in war to mistake that look. What? She says. Jiraiya closes the door behind him, and for a moment he just stands there, jaw tight, trying to choose words that won't shatter her. Then he says it anyway. He found the decoy, Jiraiya says. Tsunade's eyes narrow. I assumed he would. Jiraiya swallows. He didn't come for it. Tsunade's breath stills. Then why did he show himself? Jiraiya's voice drops. To confirm our pattern, he says. To learn how we hide. Tsunade's lips press into a thin line. And? Jiraiya's hand clenches unconsciously. And? He had help. Tsunade's gaze cuts to him. Root. Jiraiya nods once. Sharp. Tsunade's eyes burn, but she keeps her breathing steady, glancing down at Naruto as if checking whether her own rage is leaking into the room. Naruto doesn't stir. The leaves don't rustle. Tsunade keeps her voice low. What did Root do? Jiraiya's mouth feels dry. They had a jar, he says. Tsunade's eyes narrow. A jar. Jiraiya nods, and the words come out like stones. A sealed sample, he says. Tissue. Cells. Something taken from him. For a heartbeat, Tsunade doesn't move. Then her face goes pale in a way that has nothing to do with fear. It's the color of a medic realizing the patient is bleeding from somewhere she can't reach. How? She whispers. Jiraiya shakes his head. I don't know, he admits. Not from the decoy. Not from the fight at the estate. Unless one of them got close enough that night. Tsunade's hand tightens on the cradle rail until the wood creaks. Kakashi steps into the doorway behind Jiraiya, silent. He heard enough. Tsunade's voice trembles, and that tremble is far more dangerous than shouting. You're telling me, she says, that while I was holding my newborn, someone took a piece of him. Jiraiya's throat tightens. I'm telling you, Orochimaru thinks he has enough to start, he says, and he's smiling about it. Tsunade stares at Naruto. He looks so normal in sleep. Warm cheeks, soft breathing, tiny lashes. It is obscene that anyone would look at that and think, specimen. Her chest rises and falls slowly, deliberately. She forces the storm down, because she can feel how the air shifts when she loses control. Naruto's hand twitches. The sapling's leaves rustle faintly. Tsunade's voice becomes a whisper of steel. Then we stop him, she says. Jiraiya nods quickly. That's why I came. Kakashi's eye narrows. Stopping him means finding him, he says. Tsunade looks up, and there is something in her gaze that makes even Kakashi go still. We're past hunting, she says. Now we strike. Jiraiya watches her carefully. He knows this look. It's the look she wore when she walked into a battlefield hospital and decided who lived and who didn't based on seconds. It's not cruelty, it's clarity. What do you have? Tsunade asks. Jiraiya takes a breath. The convoy route, he says. The clearing. The technique signatures he used. And he hesitates, then reaches into his pouch and pulls out something small. A strip of paper. Not the earlier note. Different. A scrap that smells faintly of antiseptic and snake musk. I got this off a tree trunk, Jiraiya says. He brushed past it. Tsunade takes it with 2 fingers, closes her eyes, and lets her chakra read the residue the way a medic reads a pulse. Her expression tightens. His scent trail, she murmurs. Kakashi steps closer, watching. Can you track it? Tsunade's lips press together. Not like a dog, she says, but I can follow what he left behind. Jiraiya's voice is low. We go tonight, he says, before he moves again. Tsunade's gaze flicks to Naruto. She doesn't want to leave him. But she also knows, if she doesn't cut the snake now, she will spend the rest of her life waiting for it to strike from the dark. Kakashi reads her hesitation like a book. I stay, he says, with Naruto. Tsunade's eyes narrow. And if Danzo tries again while you're here alone. Kakashi's voice is steady. Then I make it loud, he says, and I don't let them take him. Tsunade studies him for a long moment. Kakashi doesn't blink. Finally, Tsunade nods once. She leans down and brushes Naruto's hair with her knuckles. Gentle. A touch that says, I'm coming back. Naruto stirs, mouth puckering like he's about to fuss, then settles again. The sapling relaxes. Tsunade straightens. Jiraiya, she says, we don't chase rumors, we go for his work. Jiraiya's eyes harden, his cash. Tsunade nods. If he took a sample, he has a place to use it. Jiraiya exhales. I can guess where, he says. Old tunnels, abandoned bunkers from the war, places that still smell like blood and nobody wants to claim. Tsunade's voice is cold. Then we go there. Kakashi watches them, and for a moment his voice turns almost human. Be careful, he says. Jiraiya's mouth twitches. That's not your line, he says. Kakashi's eye stays sharp. Tonight it is. Tsunade leaves without ceremony. No speeches, no counsel, no permission slips. Just 2 Sannin walking into the dark with a kind of purpose that makes the world nervous. They move through the village silently. Out through a side gate. Into the trees. The forest welcomes them with cool air and long shadows. Tsunade breathes in and feels the living world around her. Roots, soil, moisture, the faint hum of insects. It's almost cruelly peaceful. She thinks of Hashirama again, of how his gift was meant to build, and how the world insisted on making it a reason to fear. Jiraiya leads at first, following instinct and old maps in his head. Tsunade follows the residue trail she felt in the paper, picking up faint hints where Orochimaru's chakra brushed the environment. Every 700 steps or so, Tsunade's mind tries to wander into anxiety. Naruto. Danzo. Another raid. She forces it back, because she can't afford to feel that here. Not because she'll lose control of Mokuton now. Naruto isn't with her, but because rage makes you sloppy, and Orochimaru eats sloppy people for breakfast. A question rises in her mind, sharp and unavoidable. What if we're already too late? She hates that question. She holds it anyway, because holding it keeps her honest. They find the entrance just after midnight. It's not dramatic. No skull-shaped cave. No giant snake statue. Just a depression in the earth hidden behind vines with a stone slab half covered by moss. A place that screams, "Forget me." Jiraiya kneels, checks for traps with a practiced sweep. He didn't want to be found, he murmurs. Tsunade's voice is flat. He always wants to be found, she says. Just not by amateurs. Jiraiya smiles humorlessly. Good thing we're professionals. They lift the slab. Stale air exhales from below, thick with old moisture and something chemical. A tunnel descends into darkness. Jiraiya pulls a faint light from his palm, low enough to see, dim enough not to announce. They go down. The tunnel is narrow at first, then widens into old war infrastructure. Bunkers cut into rock, reinforced beams, rusted metal doors with faded symbols. Konoha built this, or one of its allies did. And then the war ended, and everyone pretended places like this weren't necessary anymore. But necessity doesn't vanish, it just hides. They pass a corridor where scratch marks line the walls, not from claws, from dragging. Tsunade's stomach twists. Jiraiya's voice is tight. He's been moving bodies through here, he murmurs. Tsunade doesn't answer. She can already feel it, faint but present, the sterile tang of a lab ahead. And beneath that, a soft pulse of chakra that doesn't belong in stone. They reach a sealed door, not locked with a simple latch, sealed with layered jutsu, suppression, camouflage, deterrence. Orochimaru's signature isn't crude, it's meticulous. Tsunade places her palm on the seal. It tries to bite her chakra, like a mouth. She breathes slowly, then threads her chakra in a way that feels almost like surgery, cutting only what needs cutting, leaving the rest sleeping. The seal loosens. Jiraiya whistles softly. Still the best medic in the world, he murmurs. Tsunade's voice is grim. Let's see what kind of patient he is. They open the door, the smell hits first. Not rot, not blood. Antiseptic, preservatives, something sweet and wrong. The room beyond is lit by faint lamps that don't flicker, powered by seals embedded in walls. Tables line the space. Glass cylinders. Scroll racks. And in the center, a large tank filled with clear liquid. Jiraiya's eyes narrow immediately. There, he says. Tsunade steps closer, heart pounding. Inside the tank floats something pale. Not fully formed, not a body. More like a beginning. A cluster of tissue bound in seals, with thin strands of chakra running through it like roots. Tsunade's breath catches. Because the chakra signature is familiar, not Naruto's full signature. Too early, too raw, but undeniably related. Like a note played on the same instrument, Jiraiya's voice goes low and furious. He started already. Tsunade's jaw tightens. He didn't need much, she whispers, just enough to anchor a pattern. Jiraiya's gaze sweeps the room and he spots a shelf of jars. Dozens. Some contain organs, some contain fragments, some contain things she refuses to name. Tsunade's stomach twists, but she doesn't look away. Because she has learned the worst rule of war medicine, if you can't look at the wound, you can't treat it. A scribbled notebook lies open on a table. Tsunade reads the nearest page. Not long quotes. Not poetic. Just clinical handwriting and diagrams. Hashirama. Wood release. Compatibility failures. Rejection. Necrosis. Then a newer section cleaner. Excited. New sample acquired. Tsunade's vision tunnels. Jiraiya's hand clenches on the table edge hard enough to crack the wood. He did this, Jiraiya whispers. He took our baby and turned him into ink. Tsunade's voice is quiet, lethal. He turned him into a recipe. They both feel it then. A shift in the air. Not their own chakra. Something else. A soft ripple, like someone inhaling behind them. Tsunade spins, fist ready. Nothing, just shadows. But the ripple stays. Jiraiya's eyes narrow. He's not here, he murmurs. Tsunade's gaze flicks around the lab. No, she agrees. But this place is listening. A surveillance technique. A sensor seal. Something that reports when the door is opened. Orochimaru built this lab like a spider builds a web. With patience, with traps, with a line that tugs when prey arrives. Tsunade's mind races. If Orochimaru knows they're here, he can collapse the tunnels, trigger poison, escape. Or worse, use this as distraction while something else happens in the village. Naruto. Tsunade's breath catches. Jiraiya sees it in her eyes. He's with Kakashi, he says quickly. He's guarded. Tsunade's voice is tight. Guarded doesn't mean untouchable. A narrator's insight lands, quiet and cruel. The thing about traps is that they're never only about killing you. Sometimes they're built to pull you away from what you're protecting. To make you choose wrong once and then live with it forever. Tsunade looks at the tank again. The cluster inside trembles faintly, as if responding to her presence, not conscious, but alive, a living consequence. Jiraiya steps closer to the tank, voice hard. We destroy it, he says. Tsunade's gaze flicks to him. And if it explodes, she warns. If it releases spores, toxins, chakra backlash. Jiraiya's jaw tightens. Then we contain it, he says. But we don't leave it. Tsunade nods sharply. Agreed. She moves to the control seals on the tank, studying them like a surgeon examining a complicated knot. Jiraiya begins to place sealing tags around the base, quiet, controlled, the opposite of his usual showmanship. They work in silence for a few breaths, and in that silence, Tsunade feels something else, not chakra, a memory, Dan, Nawaki. The way she used to tell herself she couldn't lose again. And now, she realizes, she never stopped losing. She just started losing in new ways. A small chirp from Jiraiya's toad communicator breaks the quiet. Jiraiya freezes. Then he flips it open, bringing it close to his ear. His expression changes instantly. What? Tsunade demands. Jiraiya's voice is low. Kakashi, he says. And Tsunade's heart turns to ice. Jiraiya listens for 2 seconds, then closes it. His space is tight with controlled panic. They moved again, he says. Tsunade's breath catches. Root. Jiraiya nods. Not loud, he says. Not a raid. Something subtle. Kakashi felt someone probing the outer seals, testing. Tsunade's mind snaps into place. Orochimaru's lab is the web tug. Root testing is the other hand. 2 predators moving at once, or 1 predator using 2 masks. Tsunade's voice is razor-edged. We finish here fast, she says. Then we go back. Jiraiya nods, hands moving faster. Tsunade begins to dismantle the tank seals, cutting the power threads with careful precision. The liquid inside clouds slightly as the tank's stabilizing array weakens. The tissue cluster pulses once, faint. Then a new alarm clicks into place. Low, almost inaudible. Jiraiya's head snaps up. He set a failsafe, he hisses. If the tank is tampered with, the lab shudders. Somewhere deep in the structure, a seal activates. Tsunade's eyes narrow. Collapse protocol, she snarls. Jiraiya's jaw tightens. He's going to bury us. Tsunade doesn't hesitate. She slams her palm against the tank, pouring chakra into a stabilizing pattern of her own, overriding Orochimaru's failsafe, like a medic forcing a heart back into rhythm. The tank stops shuddering for one breath. Jiraiya throws sealing tags. 3, 4, 5, locking the cluster's chakra signature into a containment net. The cluster inside twitches, then stills. Tsunade grabs a reinforced scroll tube from her pouch and unrolls it on the floor, revealing a transport seal array. Now, she snaps. Jiraiya nods and drives his chakra into the sealing array with her. The tank's liquid flashes. The cluster vanishes, pulled into the scroll like a breath sucked from air. For a moment, the lab feels emptier. Then the structure shudders again, worse. The failsafe doesn't care that the sample is gone. It cares that someone touched its treasure. The tunnel ceiling cracks. Dust drifts down. Jiraiya swears. Move, he says. They sprint out of the lab as the door behind them slams shut, seals flaring as if the facility is trying to choke off its own wound. The corridor trembles. A section ahead collapses, stones tumbling, cutting off the route they came in. Orochimaru didn't just plan for intruders. He planned for Sannin. Tsunade's mind whiffs through options. Alternate exits, hidden vents, older tunnels. Jiraiya gestures left. This way, he barks, and they turn down a narrower passage. The air grows colder. The walls here are older, rougher. They run, feet pounding, breath steady, only because panic is a luxury they can't afford. Behind them, the collapse rolls like thunder. Then they reach a chamber that stops them dead. It's smaller than the lab. Dimmer. But it has a single table in the center, and on the table is a scroll, unsealed, as if someone left it there for them. Tsunade's eyes narrow. Trap, she murmurs. Jiraiya's gaze is hard. Message, he corrects. They both know Orochimaru well enough to recognize the difference. Jiraiya steps forward cautiously, doesn't touch the scroll, just reads the writing on it. His voice goes low. Congratulations, he reads, on taking the first step. You found my nursery. Tsunade's stomach twists. Jiraiya's eyes track further down. Don't worry, he continues, voice tightening. What you took is only one seed. Seeds can be replanted. Tsunade's breath catches. The collapse rumbles again, closer. Jiraiya reads the final line, voice flat with rage. And remember, a mother's hands make the best tools because they shake the least when holding a child. Tsunade's vision goes red for a heartbeat, not fear, fury. She tastes iron in her mouth. And far away, too far away, the thought of Naruto flashes like a blade. Jiraiya grabs Tsunade's wrist. Not now, he snaps, because he can feel her chakra rise. Tsunade yanks her wrist free, but she forces the rage down. Because she can't afford to let Orochimaru steer her. The ceiling cracks again. A chunk of stone falls beside the table, shattering the scroll. Move, Tsunade says, voice hard. They sprint again. They find a side shaft, a maintenance route, half collapsed but passable. Jiraiya jams an explosive tag into a crack above, not to blow it open, but to shift the rock enough to slide through. It detonates with a muffled thump. They squeeze through. The tunnel beyond angles upward. Air grows warmer, then, finally, they burst out into the forest night, lungs burning, ears ringing from the collapsing earth behind them. They don't stop. They run toward Konoha like the distance is personal. Because now they know two things. Orochimaru is not only close, he is mocking them. And while they were underground, someone else was testing Naruto's walls. When they reach the estate, the first thing Tsunade feels is wrongness. Not obvious damage, not smoke, but an unnatural stillness, like the house is holding its breath. Kakashi meets them at the doorway, expression tight. His eye flicks to Tsunade's face, then to the sealed scroll in her hand. You got something, he says. Tsunade's voice is clipped. We did. Kakashi's gaze doesn't soften. And they got closer, he replies. Tsunade's chest tightens. Inside? Kakashi nods once. Not through the front, he says. Not through the roof. Through the seals. They tried to mimic authorization. Danzo. A fake order. A copied signature. A child's life reduced to paperwork. Tsunade exhales slowly, steadying herself. Where is he? She asks. Kakashi steps aside. Tsunade enters the nursery and stops. Naruto is awake, not crying, just staring. His blue eyes are wide, fixed on the ceiling like he's listening to something no one else can hear. The sapling in the corner is no longer a sapling. It's a young tree now, trunk thickening, branches stretching toward the walls. And the walls. The walls are being reinforced by wood from the inside, as if the house is growing armor, a living fortress. Naruto's little hands are open, fingers spread, and every tiny twitch is answered by a creak of wood. Tsunade's throat tightens. This isn't just a flare, this is a response to pressure. Someone pushed. Naruto defended. Kakashi's voice is quiet. He felt it, he says. Before I did. Tsunade steps closer slowly, forcing her breathing to be soft, her posture gentle. Naruto's gaze flicks down to her face. For a heartbeat, his expression tightens, like he's unsure whether she's real. Then his lower lip trembles, and the sound he makes is so small it breaks something in her. A soft, exhausted whimper. Tsunade lifts him into her arms carefully. Naruto's tiny fingers grip her shirt like he's trying to climb inside her skin. The wood around the room creaks, tight, tense. Tsunade whispers, voice low, steady. It's okay. I'm here. You're safe. Naruto's breathing shakes. Tsunade keeps her tone calm, even though her heart is a hammer. You're safe, she repeats. Naruto's grip slowly loosens. The tree's branches ease, lowering slightly. The wood fortress relaxes, not disappearing, but settling into readiness. Tsunade presses her cheek to Naruto's head. She can feel his chakra. Deep, green, old in a way no baby should be. And she realizes the third truth, the one that scares her the most. The more the world threatens him, the more he will become the thing they fear. A one-line mid-roll slips out of her mouth like a vow spoken to the universe. Stay with me, because the next time they reach for him, somebody's going to lose a hand. Jiraiya stands in the doorway, watching Tsunade hold Naruto while the room slowly stops growing. His face is tight. He looks at the tree, at the reinforced walls, at the way the house has become a living cage. This can't be his childhood, Jiraiya whispers. Tsunade's eyes lift, hard and wet at once. Then we change the world around him, she says. Kakashi's voice is quiet. Danzo will keep pushing, he warns. And Orochimaru, he knows you found the lab. Tsunade's jaw tightens. She reaches into her sleeve and pulls out the sealed scroll they took. The sample is contained, she says. For now. Jiraiya's eyes narrow. For now, he echoes, remembering the message. Seeds can be replanted. Tsunade's gaze goes distant for a second, mind calculating. Then she says the next move out loud, and it lands like thunder without sound. We stop playing defense, she says. Jiraiya's posture shifts. What are you thinking? Tsunade holds Naruto tighter, voice low. I'm thinking, she says, that Danzo and Orochimaru are not separate problems anymore. Kakashi's eye narrows. You think they're coordinating. Tsunade doesn't answer directly. I think, she says, that if two predators are circling the same child, they will either fight each other or they will share the meal. Jiraiya's face darkens, so we force them to fight. Tsunade nods slowly. We expose the attempt, she says. Publicly, not the Mokuton, not Naruto's gift. The theft. Kakashi's eye sharpens. You want to drag Root into the light. Tsunade's voice is calm, because she has found that calm place again, the place where decisions are clean. Yes, she says, and while Danzo is busy protecting his image, we hunt Orochimaru's next cache. We don't wait for him to grow something. Jiraiya's jaw tightens. He already started, he says. Tsunade looks at the wood around them. Then we cut it down, she whispers. Naruto shifts against her chest, eyes closing again, exhausted from defending himself. Tsunade rocks him gently. And in that gentle motion, the tree's leaves rustle softly, like the house is listening to her heartbeat and choosing to trust it. Outside, the village still sleeps, unaware that its founder's legacy is awake in a cradle, unaware that two men in the dark just tried to turn a baby into a policy, unaware that a snake has already planted seeds with stolen flesh. But someone is aware. Because somewhere beyond the estate, in a room that smells like ink and old wood, a messenger kneels and delivers a report to a man with one eye and a smile that never reaches it. The defense is evolved, the messenger says quietly. A pause. Then a voice, calm and pleased. Good, Danzo says. That means the asset is maturing. And in another place, far from Konoha, or maybe closer than anyone wants to admit, a pale hand rests on a new tank, fresh liquid shimmering under lamplight. A soft pulse answers that hand from within. Orochimaru's smile is almost affectionate. Grow, he whispers. The forest always grows. Back in the nursery, Tsunade holds Naruto and feels the world tightening around him like a net. She closes her eyes and makes herself a promise she has never made before. Not as a shinobi, not as a medic, not even as a gambler with bad luck. A promise as a mother. If they want to turn my child into a weapon, they'll have to survive me first. Naruto exhales, small and warm. The leaves rustle once, like agreement. And somewhere in the village's darkness, the next move is already being made. Konoha does not explode when Tsunade drags the truth into the open. It does something worse. It pretends to be reasonable. The morning after the second probe on the estate seals, the Hokage Tower hosts a security review. The phrase sounds like paperwork, like committee members sipping tea and nodding politely, but everyone who walks into that room knows what it really is. A public fight disguised as policy. Hiruzen sits at the head of the table, shoulders heavy, eyes sharper than they look. The elders sit like stones that learn to speak. Danzo sits slightly apart, posture calm, hands folded, as if he isn't the reason Tsunade's nursery became a fortress. Jiraiya stands against the wall with arms crossed, his usual swagger replaced by something quieter and harder. Kakashi stands in the shadow behind Hiruzen, one visible eye flat as winter, and Tsunade walks in carrying a sealed dossier, her expression controlled so tightly it almost looks gentle. She doesn't bring Naruto. That's the point. This room does not get to look at him and decide what he is. It only gets to look at what it tried to do to him. Tsunade places the dossier on the table with a clean, deliberate motion. The sound is small. It still feels like a hammer. These are the facts, she says. Her voice is even. An extraction attempt was made on my home. The operatives identified themselves as Root. A ripple goes through the room. One elder shifts, feigning surprise. Another's eyes narrow, calculating angles. Danzo's face doesn't change. Hiruzen's voice is calm. Root is not an official organization. Danzo inclines his head slightly, a gesture that means nothing and everything. Correct. Tsunade doesn't look at him yet. She looks at the elders because this is where the battle is actually fought. Official or not, she says. These operatives use Konoha techniques, Konoha resources, and Konoha authorization language. One elder clears his throat. Lady Tsunade, he says, you understand that in times like these, unauthorized. Stop, Tsunade cuts in. Not loud. Just absolute. Don't wrap attempted kidnapping in bureaucratic cloth and call it patriotism. Silence tightens. Danzo finally speaks, voice smooth. A harsh word, he says, for an act intended to secure a dangerous anomaly. Tsunade's gaze snaps to him. My son is not an anomaly, she says, each word measured. He is a child. Danzo's smile is faint. A child, he repeats, with a power that could destabilize treaties and invite war. Jiraiya's voice drifts from the wall, dry and sharp. Funny how the people who claim to prevent war keep starting private ones. Danzo doesn't glance at him. The world does not care about your sentimentality, Danzo says. It cares about balance. Tsunade leans forward slightly. Then let's talk about balance, she says, because balance is not achieved by sneaking into a nursery. She slides a second document across the table. These are the confessions extracted from the captured operatives, she says. They were trained to disappear. They were trained to die rather than speak. That alone tells you who owns them. Danzo's gaze doesn't flicker. Interrogation can be persuasive, he says. Kakashi speaks for the first time. His voice is quiet, and because it's quiet, it lands. They had poison teeth, he says. Standard root fail-safe. That's not rumor, that's equipment. The elders stiffen. Hiruzen's eyes remain on Danzo. You denied involvement, he says. Danzo spreads his hands slightly. And I deny it still, he replies. A rogue unit, a loyal unit, perhaps, that believes it serves the village better than I do. The nerve of it is almost impressive. Tsunade feels her pulse spike. Across town, miles away, Naruto would feel that spike if she lets it rise too high. She forces the storm down. A narrator's insight settles into the moment like a blade being sheathed. Power doesn't always threaten you by attacking. Sometimes it threatens you by smiling, by sounding calm while it shifts the definition of acceptable a little closer to cruelty. And if you let that shift happen once, you spend the rest of your life trying to move the line back. Tsunade lifts her chin. Here's what will happen, she says. Root operatives will be surrendered into Hokage custody. All root facilities will be disclosed and inspected. All records related to my son's medical, political mission will be sealed under Hokage and my authority only. An elder bristles. That is extreme. Tsunade's gaze is flat. So was a muffling field in my courtyard. Danzo's voice is soft, almost kind. You mistake control for safety, he says. If the boy is as valuable as you claim, then secrecy will not protect him. It will only isolate him. Tsunade's eyes narrow. I'm not isolating him, she says. I'm removing him from people who think valuable means owned. Danzo's smile doesn't reach his eye. Ownership is a childish concept, he says. What I seek is responsibility. Jiraiya snorts. You seek permission to do whatever you want and call it sacrifice. Hiruzen raises a hand, and the room's heat settles slightly. Enough, he says. His gaze sweeps the table. Tsunade's demands stand, he says. Root facilities will be disclosed. Danzo's eye tightens, just a fraction. The elders murmur. Hiruzen continues, voice steady. And there will be a new protection framework, he adds, to prevent further incidents. Danzo's head tilts. A framework, he echoes, pleased. Tsunade's jaw tightens. Because she hears the trap in that word too. Frameworks become cages if the wrong hands write them. Hiruzen looks at Tsunade. You will be consulted, he says. Tsunade's voice is quiet. Not consulted, she corrects. In charge. Hiruzen's eyes hold hers for a long moment. Then he nods once. Danzo's smile fades by a millimeter. The meeting ends with paper promises and sealed orders. On the surface, Tsunade wins. But as she leaves the tower, she can feel the truth like grit under her skin. Danzo never fights where he can be seen. He fights in the spaces between policies. He fights in the delays, the miscommunications, the sudden shortages of resources, the whisper campaigns that turn public sympathy into fear. And the village is already whispering. Not about Root, not about Danzo, about Naruto. The word Senju is warm in some mouths and bitter in others. They say it like a prayer. They say it like a warning. They say it like a reason to make decisions for someone who can't speak yet. Tsunade returns to the estate and stands in the nursery doorway, breathing slowly until the tightness in her chest eases. Kakashi is there. Of course he is. Naruto is in his cradle, older now than he was when the sapling first erupted. Not by a day, not by a week. Time has moved in quick, compressed leaps since the first attempt, because crises do that. They eat months like seconds. Naruto is no longer a newborn. He is a child with strong legs and restless hands. A child who watches everything. A child who has learned, in his own quiet way, that the world touches him differently. He isn't old enough to understand words like treaty or asset, but he understands the way adults' voices change around him. He understands when guards appear where there used to be none. He understands when Tsunade's smile becomes something she wears rather than something she feels. Naruto sits on the floor playing with blocks, wooden blocks. The irony is not lost on anyone except him. He stacks them, then frowns, then rearranges. Then he pauses, eyes narrowing in concentration, and one block subtly shifts shape under his fingertips, edges smoothing, corners sharpening, as if the wood is listening to him. Tsunade watches, throat tight. It's not a flare, it's deliberate. Kakashi speaks quietly beside her. He's doing it again, he murmurs. Tsunade nods once. Yes. Naruto looks up at her, bright-eyed. Bah, he starts, and the word is messy, half-formed. Tsunade's heart lurches anyway. He grins like he knows he did something powerful. Tsunade kneels beside him, keeping her voice soft. Show me, she whispers. Naruto looks at the blocks, then at her, as if checking whether she really means it. Then he places his palm on the top block and concentrates so hard his brows knit. The block trembles. A thin sprout pushes out from its side, curling like a tiny vine, looping around the block beneath it to stabilize the stack. Naruto giggles. Tsunade's eyes sting. She forces herself to smile gently. Good, she murmurs. Very good. Because she understands what this means. and she hates it and loves it at the same time. It means the power is not random. It means it will grow. And growth is dangerous when the world is already sharpening knives. That night, Tsunade reopens the Senju estate properly, not as a museum, not as a shrine to what the clan used to be, as a clinic. A place of healing and training under her control, with trusted hands and sealed doors. The village hears about it within hours. They whisper again, Senju are back. The old blood is awake. The founder's house is breathing. Tsunade doesn't correct them. Let them think what they want. She is not rebuilding a clan for pride. She is building a fortress disguised as compassion. The first diamond scene arrives quietly, like a knife placed gently on a table. Tsunade stands in the main hall of the estate with Naruto beside her, small hand gripping her sleeve, eyes wide as he takes in the space. The banners are clean, the rooms are repaired. The air smells faintly of herbs and old wood. Naruto looks up at a faded crest carved into a beam. He touches it. The wood doesn't flare. It just hums softly under his fingers like recognition. Tsunade kneels beside him. This is where my family lived, she says quietly. Naruto tilts his head. Family? Yes, Tsunade whispers. But it doesn't mean you have to be anything for them. Naruto blinks, not fully understanding, but hearing the weight in her voice. Tsunade's hand cups his cheek gently. You don't owe ghosts, she says. You only owe yourself. Naruto looks at her, then nods solemnly like he understands anyway. And for one heartbeat, Tsunade lets herself imagine a world where that's true. A world where he grows up and the Senju name is just a name. Not a target, not a prophecy, just family. But the world doesn't grant wishes for free. 2 days later, the framework arrives. It comes as an official proposal, sealed and stamped, delivered with polite language and cold intent. Hiruzen calls Tsunade and Jiraiya to the tower again. Danzo is already there, sitting with that same calm. The elders sit with papers arranged neatly in front of them like shields. Hiruzen looks tired when Tsunade enters, like he's been arguing for days and losing inches at a time. He slides the document across the table. Tsunade reads the title and feels her stomach drop. Protective Containment Act. Her eyes scan the text. Provisions, restrictions, supervision, mandatory evaluations, and then she sees it. A seal. A proposed stabilization seal. To be placed on Naruto to limit chakra surges, to prevent accidents, to ensure public safety. Tsunade's vision goes white at the edges. Her fingers crumple the paper slightly before she forces them to relax. Jiraiya leans forward, eyes narrowing as he reads. You've got to be kidding. Danzo speaks softly. It is reasonable, he says. A precaution. Tsunade's voice is quiet. A cage. Danzo's smile is faint. A seatbelt, he corrects. Do you oppose seatbelts, Tsunade? Jiraiya's laugh is sharp. Don't compare a child's chakra to a carriage accident. Danzo's gaze slides to Jiraiya. When a carriage crashes, it kills a few, he says. When that child loses control, it could kill hundreds. Tsunade's jaw tightens. He's learning control, she says. Danzo spreads his hands. He is a child, he says. Children learn by failing. Are you willing to let him fail publicly? Hiruzen's voice is heavy. Tsunade, he says, I argued against the seal. Tsunade doesn't look at him. Then why is it on this table? Hiruzen's eyes drop. Because the elders will push it through with or without my approval, he says quietly. And if it passes without safeguards... Safeguards, Tsunade repeats, tasting the lie. Danzo's tone is almost gentle. You cannot protect him by refusing reality, he says. The village is afraid. Tsunade's voice hardens. The village is always afraid, she says. Fear is not a reason to brand my child. Danzo's eye tightens. Then what is your solution, he asks, when he destroys a street by accident, when he panics and grows a forest through someone's home? Tsunade's breath catches, because he's describing a scenario that is possible. That's the trap. He's offering the seal as the responsible option, forcing her to choose between autonomy and safety. A narrator's insight slides into the room like smoke. People will always ask you to trade freedom for safety, and they will call it maturity. But the fine print is always the same. The person who holds the key decides what safe means. Tsunade looks at the document again. She thinks of root hands reaching through her window. She thinks of Orochimaru's tank, pulsing with stolen flesh. She thinks of Naruto's tiny fingers reshaping a block, proud and innocent. And she realizes something with painful clarity. If she allows this seal, even once, it tells the village that Naruto is something to be managed, not loved. And once you accept that premise, you lose him slowly, legally, politely. Tsunade sets the paper down carefully, smoothing it flat like she's calming an animal. Then she looks up. No, she says. The room stills. Hiruzen's eyes sharpen. Danzo's smile fades. The elder's expressions tighten like old knots. Danzo speaks softly. You refuse a safety measure. Tsunade's voice is calm, and that calm is deadly. I refuse to let you practice control on my child, she says. Danzo's gaze stays steady. Then you leave us vulnerable. Tsunade leans forward slightly. No, she says, I leave you accountable. An elder slams a palm down. This is insubordination. Tsunade turns to him, eyes flat. Try to write that on a mission report, she says. See who signs it. Jiraiya's mouth twitches, but there's no humor in it. Hiruzen raises a hand. Enough, he says, voice stern. He looks at Tsunade, pain and respect tangled in his expression. If you refuse, he says quietly, they will attempt to force compliance. Tsunade's gaze doesn't flinch. Let them try, she says. Danzo's voice is almost a whisper. You are not above the village. Tsunade's eyes burn. And my son is not beneath it. She stands. The chair scrapes softly. Meeting over, she says, and walks out. She doesn't slam doors. She doesn't shout. She simply leaves because she refuses to keep arguing with people who treat her child like a clause. Outside, the tower hallway feels too bright, too normal, like the village is pretending nothing just happened. Kakashi meets her at the stairs, one eye searching her face. He doesn't ask what happened. He already knows. Tsunade's voice is low. They want to seal him. Kakashi's jaw tightens a fraction. And you refused. Tsunade nods once. Kakashi exhales slowly. Then they'll come, he says. Tsunade's mouth twists. I know! Kakashi walks beside her in silence until they reach a quiet corridor, away from ears. Then he says something Tsunade doesn't expect. He heard, Kakashi says. Tsunade stops. What? Kakashi's gaze is steady. Naruto, he says. He heard enough. Tsunade's blood goes cold. He wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't, Kakashi agrees. But he likes following footsteps. Tsunade's chest tightens, guilt rising. Kakashi continues, voice quiet. He didn't understand the words, he says, but he understood the tone. He understood that people were talking about him like he was a problem. Tsunade closes her eyes briefly, jaw clenched. Kakashi's voice softens in a way Tsunade rarely hears from him. He asks me, Kakashi says, if the village hates him. Tsunade's eyes open sharply, pain flashing. Kakashi looks away for a heartbeat. I told him no, he says, but he didn't believe me. Tsunade's throat tightens. Kakashi turns back, and his voice drops into something like confession, the second diamond scene hidden in a hallway. I know that look, Kakashi says quietly. The look of a child learning he's being watched. Tsunade studies him. Kakashi's eye is distant now, seeing old ghosts. When you're told you're dangerous, he says, you start believing it's your job to disappear. Tsunade's voice is rough. Kakashi, he shakes his head slightly. I'm not saying this for sympathy, he says. I'm saying it because Naruto is at the edge of a decision he doesn't know he's making. Tsunade's chest tightens. What decision? Kakashi's voice is low. Whether to become what they fear, he says, or to become nothing at all. Tsunade feels something crack inside her. Not rage, grief, because she suddenly sees it. Naruto growing up under guard, hearing whispers, sensing fear, learning to shrink so he doesn't hurt anyone. A child with a forest inside him learning to live like a cage is normal. Tsunade swallows hard. Where is he? She asks. Kakashi's eye sharpens again. He ran, he says. The words hit like a punch. Tsunade's heart lurches. What? Kakashi's posture shifts instantly into action. He slipped out, he says. I followed as long as I could without spooking him. He's fast when he's scared. Tsunade's breath catches. He's just a child. Kakashi nods once. And he's learned one thing, he says quietly. If he leaves first, no one can take him. Tsunade turns without thinking, sprinting down the corridor like the tower is on fire. Jiraiya appears at the far end, having felt the shift in energy even without being told. What happened, he demands. Tsunade's voice is tight. Naruto ran. Jiraiya's expression changes instantly. Panic, fury, focus all at once. Where? Kakashi answers, already moving. Toward the training fields, he says. Then the trees. Tsunade's blood goes cold. The trees. If Naruto runs into the forest scared alone, his Mokuton will answer him like a loyal beast. And if it answers hard enough, everyone will feel it. Danzo. Orochimaru. Every sensor team within miles. Tsunade sprints out of the tower. Jiraiya at her side, Kakashi ahead. Konoha's streets blur. People turn, startled, as the Sannin and the Copy Ninja move like a storm through daylight. They reach the edge of the village, the line where buildings give way to green. Kakashi stops at the first trees and crouches, fingers touching a patch of disturbed soil. His eye narrows. He went in. Tsunade stares into the forest, heart hammering. Naruto, she whispers, though she knows he can't hear. Jiraiya's jaw tightens. We find him, he says, quietly. Tsunade nods once, then forces her breathing to slow, because she remembers the rule again. He responds to emotion. If she storms into the forest like a wildfire, he will answer with trees. She steps forward carefully, voice soft. Naruto, she calls, gentle, it's me. The forest is quiet. Then, faintly, the leaves rustle, not from wind, from a path forming. A thin line of green shoots pushes through the underbrush, bending aside branches as if making room. Tsunade's breath catches. He's not just running. He's making the forest move with him. Jiraiya's voice is low. He's leaving a trail, he murmurs. Kakashi's eye sharpens. Or the forest is, he says. They follow, stepping where the shoots guide them. Every few meters, a small plant sprouts, bright and new, like breadcrumbs. Naruto's fear is writing a map. Tsunade's chest aches. A narrator's insight settles as they move, quiet and relentless. Children don't run because they hate you. They run because they think they're saving you. They believe they are the problem. And distance is the only apology they know how to offer. The path leads deeper than Tsunade expects. The village sounds fade. The air cools. Then they see it. A clearing that didn't exist yesterday. Trees have bent inward in a rough circle. Trunks grown thick. Branches woven together like walls. A living hideout. In the center, Naruto sits with knees hugged to his chest, head down. He doesn't look like a weapon. He looks like a child who overheard adults discussing how to restrain him and decided to disappear before they could. Tsunade stops at the edge of the woven trees, throat tight. She doesn't step in yet. She lowers herself slowly to one knee, making herself small. "Naruto," she says softly, "I'm here." Naruto's head lifts. His eyes are wet. Not from pain, from shame. He stares at her like he's bracing for rejection. Tsunade keeps her voice gentle, steady. "You didn't do anything wrong," she says. Naruto's voice is small, broken. They said, "seal," he whispers. The word mispronounced but clear enough. Tsunade's chest tightens. She shakes her head slowly. "They don't get to," she says. "Not ever." Naruto swallows, eyes shining. "I make trouble," he whispers. Tsunade's heart fractures and heals at the same time. She leans forward slightly, palms open. "You make life," she says. "And people who are afraid of life call it trouble." Naruto's lower lip trembles. The woven branches around him creak, tightening unconsciously like the forest is trying to protect him from the conversation. Tsunade keeps her breathing calm. "Come here," she whispers. Naruto hesitates. Then, very slowly, he stands and takes a step toward her. The branches loosen a fraction, another step. Then suddenly, like his resolve breaks, he runs, straight into her arms. Tsunade catches him, holds him tight, pressing her cheek to his hair. Naruto shakes, sobbing quietly, fists clenched in her shirt. Tsunade rocks him gently, eyes closed, breathing slow, steady, telling her chakra to be calm like a lullaby. Behind her, Jiraiya exhales, relief sharp as pain. Kakashi stays silent, watching the forest walls relax as Naruto's spear drains into Tsunade's arms. But relief lasts only a heartbeat, because as the woven trees settle, Tsunade feels something else. A ripple, far away. A chakra disturbance like a bell rung in the dark, not Naruto's. Different, thin, curious, cold. Jiraiya feels it too. His posture stiffens. Kakashi's eye narrows, instantly alert. Tsunade holds Naruto tighter, her blood turning to ice again. Because the forest hideout wasn't just a child's shelter, it was a signal. And somewhere out there, someone just felt it and smiled. Kakashi's voice is low. "We're being watched," he murmurs. Jiraiya's gaze sweeps the trees. "By who?" he growls. Tsunade doesn't answer. She doesn't need to. Because a faint hiss of laughter threads through the leaves, so quiet it might be imagined, if it didn't make her skin crawl. And then, pinned to the bark of a nearby tree, a new slip of paper flutters gently. Fresh. Clean. Placed moments ago. Jiraiya steps forward, snatches it, and reads. His face drains of color. Tsunade's throat tightens. "What?" Jiraiya's voice is rough. He says, Jiraiya whispers, "Thank you for showing me where the roots go." And deep in the forest, something moves. Too smoothly to be an animal circling the clearing like a patient predator. Tsunade lifts Naruto in her arms and turns toward the path back to the village. Because part 6 ends with a truth that feels like a track closing, Naruto can hide behind walls of wood, but he can't hide from the people who know how to follow the forest's heartbeat. The paper in Jiraiya's hand feels heavier than it should, not because of ink, because of what it confirms. Orochimaru isn't guessing anymore. He's not sniffing around the edges like a snake testing the warmth of a stone. He has a trail. And trails, once established, become habits. Habits become routines. And routines get people killed. Tsunade moves fast, but not loud. Naruto is in her arms, still trembling, his small hands clutching at her as if he's afraid the air itself might pull him away. His cheeks are damp. His breath stutters in tiny hiccups that make Tsunade's chest ache. She wants to rage. She wants to crush the nearest tree into splinters and scream at the sky for daring to make a child feel like a mistake. But she keeps her voice soft, keeps her breathing slow, keeps her chakra steady like a hand on a fevered forehead, because she can feel the forest listening. Not just Naruto's Mokuton, the forest itself, a living world responding to a living fear. And somewhere in that living world, something moves with intent. Kakashi takes point, silent as ever, stepping where the path bends aside for them as if the underbrush is apologizing. Jiraiya stays slightly behind, eyes sweeping the canopy, the undergrowth, the shadows between roots. He doesn't speak. Not because he has nothing to say, because anything he says will come out as violence. And violence, right now, is exactly what Orochimaru wants. They move through the forest in a tight triangle, Tsunade in the center with Naruto, Kakashi guiding, Jiraiya guarding the rear like a loaded trap. A faint rustle trails them. Not wind. Not animal. A kind of attention. Tsunade hears it and refuses to turn, because turning tells a watcher you feel them, and the people who watch like this feed on reaction. The village wall appears ahead through the trees like a promise made of stone. Tsunade's lungs finally loosen a fraction. Then Kakashi freezes. His hand lifts, subtle, signaling stop. Tsunade halts immediately, heart tightening again. Jiraiya's eyes narrow. "What?" he murmurs, barely a breath. Kakashi's visible eye is cold. "Trapline," he whispers. Tsunade follows his gaze. A thin thread of chakra runs between two branches at shin height, almost invisible unless you're looking for it. Not a simple tripwire. A sensor line. A line that tells someone you passed and maybe marks you with a signature. Kakashi shifts, reaches out with two fingers, and touches it in a way that makes Tsunade's skin crawl. Gentle, precise. He traces the line's pattern through the air like reading braille. His eye narrows. "Not root," he says quietly. Jiraiya's jaw tightens. "Orochimaru." Kakashi nods once. "He's mapping Naruto's chakra," Kakashi says. Tsunade's blood turns to ice. Naruto shifts against her, sensing the change, his tiny fingers tightening. A small leaf trembles on a nearby branch like it's holding its breath. Tsunade presses her cheek to Naruto's hair and murmurs, "It's okay," forcing the lie to sound like truth. Kakashi severs the line with a tiny blade, then sweeps the sealing tag across the cut ends, blinding the sensor's report. He looks up. "He's close enough to lay these," he says. Jiraiya's voice is low. Or he has someone doing it for him. Tsunade swallows, forcing her mind to stay sharp instead of drowning in dread. They move again, stepping around the trap site. By the time they reach the wall, Tsunade's arms ache from holding Naruto, but she doesn't hand him off, not even for a second. Konoha's guards see them and tense immediately. Because the sight of Tsunade sprinting out of the forest with her child in her arms is not normal. Because normal died years ago and never really came back. The gates open quickly. Too quickly. Tsunade notes that too. Kakashi's gaze flicks to the guards' faces. He's reading them for signs of orders that didn't come from the Hokage. Jiraiya's posture remains loose, but Tsunade knows better. Loose is the posture of a tiger. They get Naruto back into the estate, back into the sealed nursery, back into the illusion of safety. And for a moment, only a moment, the room feels warmer. Naruto sits on the floor again, eyes red-rimmed, but calmer now, chewing on a piece of cloth. Tsunade hands him like it's a mission. The young tree in the corner rustles softly, not tense, not defensive. More like a pet settling near its owner. Tsunade kneels beside Naruto and steadies her breathing. He watches her face the way he's learned to, like he's learned that her calm is his shelter. Jiraiya stands by the window, watching the outside world as if he can intimidate it into behaving. Kakashi stays near the door, one eye half-lidded, listening to the estate like it's speaking a language only he understands. Tsunade speaks first, voice quiet. He's not just watching, she says, he's learning. Jiraiya's mouth tightens. He learned enough to leave that note. Kakashi's eye shifts to Naruto. The forest hideout, he says. It wasn't just a shelter, it was a display. Tsunade closes her eyes briefly. The shame of it stings, not Naruto's, hers. She brought him here. She thought she was protecting him. She accidentally handed their predator a map. A narrator's truth sits in her chest like a stone. You can do everything right and still feed the thing you fear. Not because you're weak, because the world is built to punish hope by turning it into a trail. Tsunade opens her eyes. We can't keep reacting, she says. We can't keep letting them choose the battlefield. Jiraiya turns from the window, eyes hard. Then we choose it, he says. Kakashi's voice is steady. And we choose it where the village can see, he adds. Tsunade looks at him. You agree? Kakashi's eye doesn't waver. Secrecy isn't working, he says. It's only making Naruto feel like he's a shameful thing that needs hiding. Naruto glances up at his name, then back down, fingers fidgeting with the cloth. He doesn't understand the full sentence. But he understands tone. He understands the way the room tightens around him. Tsunade's chest aches. She moves closer and cups Naruto's cheek gently. You're not in trouble, she whispers, soft enough that only he can hear. Naruto blinks, lips trembling slightly, then nods. Tsunade stands. Here's what happens, she says, voice firm. We create rules that don't just exist on paper. We create witnesses. Jiraiya's brow lifts, meaning. Tsunade's eyes sharpen. Meaning we stop hiding Naruto behind locked doors, she says. We put him somewhere he can be seen but protected, somewhere public enough that Danzo can't reach without exposing himself. Kakashi's eye narrows. You want to move him to the Hokage tower. Tsunade nods once. Jiraiya's jaw tightens. That's painting a target. It's already painted, Tsunade replies. I'm choosing the wall behind the target. Kakashi considers. Hiruzen would allow it. Tsunade's voice is cold. He'll have to. Jiraiya exhales slowly. And Orochimaru? Tsunade's gaze hardens. Orochimaru hunts the hidden, she says. He loves secrets, he loves dark corners. The moment Naruto becomes a public symbol, Orochimaru loses the clean option. Jiraiya snorts. He doesn't need clean. No, Tsunade agrees. But he prefers it. The messier he gets, the more chances we have to catch him. Kakashi nods once. And Danzo, he murmurs. Tsunade's eyes flick. Danzo's leverage is quiet control, she says. If Naruto is in the Hokage tower, under official guard, Danzo can't claim he's protecting the village while stealing him in the dark. Jiraiya's mouth tightens. Unless he can convince the village that the tower isn't safe, he says. Tsunade's lips press together. Because that is exactly what Danzo would do if he can't take Naruto. He'll make Tsunade look reckless. He'll make Hiruzen look weak. He'll make the public demand the seatbelt. And then the cage arrives legally. Tsunade turns toward Naruto again. He's calmer now, the earlier fear draining into fatigue. He leans slightly against the young tree in the corner, as if it's just another piece of furniture, not a declaration of lineage. Tsunade's throat tightens. She speaks again, softer. We also have to teach him, she says. Jiraiya's eyes flick to her. He's a kid. I know, Tsunade says, and he's already making choices. He ran because he thought he was saving us. Kakashi's eye lowers slightly. He's internalizing fear, he says. Tsunade nods. So we change what he learns, fear means. Jiraiya's voice is quiet. How? Tsunade's gaze steadies. We teach him that his power is not a curse, she says. We teach him it's a tool for protection, for building, for healing. Jiraiya's mouth twists. You think you can turn a forest into a lullaby? Tsunade looks at Naruto and answers simply. I have to, she says. Because if I don't, someone else will teach him what it's for. The third diamond scene lands the next morning. Not in a lab, not in a council chamber, in a training yard. Tsunade brings Naruto to a small enclosed garden inside the Senju estate. Stone walls, clean soil, a single bench, and nothing sharp that can be turned into a weapon. Kakashi watches from the shadows. Jiraiya lingers near the gate, pretending he's not nervous. Naruto steps into the garden and pauses, eyes wide. He looks at the soil like it's a friend. Tsunade kneels beside him. We're going to practice, she says gently. Naruto blinks. Yes, Tsunade murmurs. Not fighting, not hurting, just listening. Naruto tilts his head. Tsunade places her palm on the soil. Feel it, she whispers. It's alive, but it doesn't look green. It just waits. Naruto crouches slowly, small fingers hovering above the dirt. His brows knit in concentration. Tsunade keeps her breathing slow. Calm, soft. Naruto's fingers touch soil. A tiny sprout pushes up, not explosive, not defensive. A single green shoot unfurling like a shy smile. Naruto's face lights up. Whoa! Tsunade's lips curve faintly. Good, she whispers. Now do it again, smaller. Naruto frowns, trying. He touches another patch. A second sprout appears, then a third little seedlings in a row like he's planting hope. Jiraiya watches from the gate, throat tight because the sight is so painfully ordinary. A child planting. It should be the simplest thing in the world. But in Konoha, it feels like a rebellion. Tsunade speaks softly, the narrator and her voice slipping through without her trying. This is what it's for, she whispers to Naruto. To make things grow. Naruto glances up. Not bad? Tsunade's chest aches. She shakes her head slowly. Not bad, she says. Not unless someone teaches you it's bad. Naruto nods with the solemn seriousness only children can summon. Then he looks down again and touches the soil one more time, careful. A small flower blooms, bright, simple, alive. For a moment, Tsunade's throat tightens so hard she can't speak. Because she sees it, a future where Naruto isn't forced into being a blade. A future where he becomes a hand that rebuilds. And then the future reminds her, it's never free. A flicker of chakra at the wall. Kakashi's posture shifts instantly. Jiraiya's eyes sharpen. Tsunade feels it too. Thin, curious, cold. A sensor technique. Someone is watching the garden. Naruto doesn't notice. He's smiling at the flower like it's the greatest achievement of his life. Tsunade's blood turns to ice. Jiraiya murmurs, barely audible, we've got eyes. Kakashi's eye narrows. Not close, he whispers, but present. Tsunade keeps her smile for Naruto, keeps her voice calm. Good job, she murmurs, brushing his hair gently. We're done for now. Naruto looks up, confused but obedient, and takes her hand. Tsunade walks him inside with steady steps, as if nothing is wrong. Inside, she hands Naruto to a trusted medic and turns toward Jiraiya and Kakashi, her expression hardening the moment Naruto is out of earshot. They're monitoring his practice, she says. Jiraiya's jaw tightens. Orochimaru. Kakashi's voice is quiet. Or Danzo, or both. Tsunade's eyes burn. Then we were right, she says. Secrecy isn't just failing, it's feeding them. Jiraiya exhales. So we move him to the tower, he says. Tsunade nods. Today, she says. The move is announced as a protective relocation, framed as routine, documented, witnessed, and guarded by enough official eyes that anyone attempting an extraction would have to do it in daylight. Danzo doesn't protest publicly. That's how Tsunade knows it's dangerous. He smiles, he nods, he says the right things, and behind those right things, he begins to shift the village's mood. Tsunade hears the whispers within hours. She's hiding him in the tower. She thinks she can keep him from the village. She's going to make him a new founder. She's going to drag us into war. The words aren't shouted, they're seeded. And seeds grow. By afternoon, Tsunade, Naruto, Kakashi, and a tight escort of A and BU move through the village toward the tower. Naruto holds Tsunade's hand, looking around with wide eyes. He notices the stares. He notices the way people lean away slightly like they're afraid of brushing against him. He notices the way some people smile too brightly, like they're greeting a mascot. Tsunade's chest tightens, but she keeps her expression gentle for him. This is just a walk, she whispers, squeezing his hand. Naruto looks up. People, look. Yes, Tsunade murmurs. They're curious. Naruto's brows knit. Curious, like bad? Tsunade swallows. Some are scared, she admits softly. But that's not your job to fix. Naruto thinks about that, small face serious. Then he nods once, as if accepting a burden he shouldn't have to carry. They reach the Hokage Tower. Hiruzen meets them at the entrance, eyes tired but warm when he looks at Naruto. Naruto hesitates, clinging closer to Tsunade. Hiruzen crouches slowly to Naruto's height, voice gentle. Hello, Naruto, he says. Naruto stares, then whispers, Old man? Jiraiya coughs a laugh into his fist. Hiruzen's mouth twitches. Yes, he says, accepting it with the dignity only a Hokage can muster. Old man. Naruto studies him, then nods like that makes sense. Hiruzen rises and looks at Tsunade. You're doing the right thing, he says quietly. Tsunade's eyes narrow. I'm doing the necessary thing, she corrects. Hiruzen's gaze holds hers. Necessary is often right, he says. They bring Naruto to a secured suite near Hiruzen's office, sealed, guarded, and with a small adjacent room turned into a garden space so Naruto can practice calmly without turning the corridor into a forest. Tsunade stands in the doorway, watching Naruto explore the new space. He touches a planter. A sprout rises gently. He giggles. For a heartbeat, Tsunade lets herself breathe. Then the fourth diamond scene arrives, not with a crash, but with a polite knock. A council messenger enters Hiruzen's office later that evening, face tense. Hokage-sama, the messenger says, the elders request an emergency hearing. Hiruzen's eyes narrow. About what? The messenger swallows. About the containment proposal, he says. They've gathered signatures. They intend to push it through tonight. Tsunade's blood runs cold. Jiraiya's face darkens. They're forcing it. Kakashi's eye narrows. With the village watching, he murmurs. Using fear. Hiruzen's jaw tightens. I can veto, he says. Danzo's voice comes from the doorway like smoke. And they can override, he says calmly. Tsunade's eyes snap to him. Danzo steps inside, posture relaxed, as if this is all unavoidable weather. You're moving too fast, Tsunade says coldly. Danzo's smile is faint. You moved first, he replies. You placed the child in the tower, you made him visible. Now the village wants reassurance. Tsunade's fists curl. Hiruzen's gaze hardens. You're driving this. Danzo inclines his head. I'm acknowledging reality, he says. Tsunade's voice is quiet and deadly. Reality is you tried to steal him. Danzo's eye doesn't flicker. Reality is, the world will try to steal him, he says, and you are not enough. Jiraiya shifts, a growl in his throat. Say that again. Danzo doesn't look at him. The hearing begins in 1 hour, he says to Hiruzen. If you block it, you will look like you're hiding something. Tsunade's voice is razor-edged, and if you pass it, you will look like you're branding a child. Danzo's smile widens slightly. Only to those who romanticize freedom, he says. He turns to leave, then pauses at the door and adds softly, Bring the child, he says. Let the village see what it's protecting. Tsunade's blood turns to fire. Hiruzen's voice is sharp. No. Danzo's head tilts. Then you lose, he says, and leaves. Silence hangs in the office like smoke. Tsunade's chest rises and falls slowly, deliberately. Jiraiya's jaw tightens. We can't let them seal him, he says. Kakashi's eye is cold. If they pass it, he says, they'll call it lawful, and lawful means the village will accept it. Hiruzen rubs his temple, weariness deep. If I veto, he says, they override. If I refuse the hearing, they claim I'm hiding something. They use that to justify worse. Tsunade looks toward the door that leads to Naruto's suite. He's laughing in there, making sprouts rise in a planter like it's a game. He doesn't know a room full of adults is about to decide how much of his body belongs to fear. Tsunade's voice drops. Then we change what the hearing is about, she says. Jiraiya turns. How? Tsunade's eyes sharpen, decision forming like a blade. We make this about Danzo, she says, not Naruto. Hiruzen's gaze flickers. You can't accuse him without proof that stands in public. Tsunade's mouth tightens. Then we give the public something they can't ignore. Kakashi's eye narrows. Rude facilities, he says. The ones you ordered disclosed. Hiruzen's jaw tightens. They're being delayed, he admits. Tsunade's laugh is bitter. Of course they are. Jiraiya's voice goes low. I have something, he says. They all look at him. Jiraiya pulls out a sealed scroll, the one Tsunade took from the lab. This, he says, Orochimaru's nursery. The sample we contained. Hiruzen's eyes widen slightly. You took it. Tsunade's voice is calm. Yes, she says. And we can show the village what happens when children become assets. Kakashi's eye tightens. That risks revealing Mokuton, he warns. Tsunade nods. We don't show what Naruto is, she says. We show what was done to him. Hiruzen's face tightens with horror and resolve. You're going to accuse Orochimaru publicly, he says. Tsunade's eyes burn. And by extension, she says softly, accuse anyone who tried to get their hands on Naruto quietly. Jiraiya's voice is grim. Danzo won't like that. Tsunade's mouth twists. Good. A narrator's insight settles like a quiet oath. Sometimes you can't win by protecting someone from the world. Sometimes you win by forcing the world to admit what it is, by turning whispers into statements, by making fear show its face. Hiruzen exhales slowly. If we do this, he says, it becomes war inside our own walls. Tsunade's gaze is steady. It already is, she replies. Kakashi's eye flicks toward Naruto's door. Then make the war short, he murmurs. Hiruzen straightens. Bring the scroll, he says, not the child. Tsunade nods once. The hearing happens in the council chamber. Elders, Jonin leaders, clan heads, and enough witnesses that the air feels thick with politics. Danzo stands at the side like a patient shadow. The elders speak first, voices solemn, painting a picture of public safety and necessary restraint. They never say Naruto's name like he's a person. They say it like a weather event. Then Hiruzen raises a hand and the room stills. He speaks calmly. Before we decide what to do to protect the village, he says, we will confront what threatens it. A murmur. Danzo's eye narrows. Hiruzen gestures to Tsunade. She steps forward, holding the sealed scroll. The room's attention tightens. Tsunade's voice is steady. This was taken from an underground facility used by Orochimaru, she says. A facility built for experimentation. Danzo's voice cuts in, calm. Relevance. Tsunade doesn't look at him. The relevance, she says, is that the same logic being used to justify sealing my son is the logic Orochimaru used to justify taking people apart. The room shifts. Some faces pale. Some faces harden. Tsunade unseals the scroll just enough to project a contained image, abstracted, censored by sealing technique. Not gore. Not spectacle. Just a clinical depiction of a pulsing cluster of tissue in a tank, bound by research seals. A seed? A living theft. Gasps ripple through the chamber. Hiruzen's voice is heavy. Orochimaru acquired a sample connected to Naruto Senju, he says. The room's air changes. Danzo's posture stiffens. Tsunade's voice is cold. He wrote this, she says, and recites only the essential meaning. No theatrical quoting, just the truth, that Orochimaru called it a seed, that he intended to grow more. The chamber erupts into murmurs. Clan heads exchange looks. Fear spikes. But now the fear has a direction, not toward the child, toward the people who would treat him like a specimen. Danzo speaks, voice smooth. You endanger the village with sensationalism, he says. Tsunade finally turns to him, eyes flat. And you endanger it with quiet theft, she replies. Danzo's eye narrows. You have no proof of my involvement, he says. Kakashi steps forward, voice quiet but sharp. We captured operatives, he says. They used root failsafes. Danzo's smile is thin. Root does not exist, he says. Hiruzen's voice is iron. Then explain why its techniques keep appearing, he says. Danzo's eye tightens. The chamber is tense enough to snap. And in that tension, Tsunade feels something cold crawl up her spine, a ripple. A sensation like a shadow passing over the room. She glances up, and she sees it. On a high beam near the ceiling, barely visible, a small snake, thin, pale slithers along wood like a whisper. Not natural. A spy. Orochimaru's eyes. He's here, not in person, but present enough to watch the village tear itself open. Tsunade's blood turns to ice. Because if Orochimaru is watching this hearing, then he's not just curious, he's choosing a moment. Jiraiya feels it too. His posture shifts, eyes scanning. Kakashi's eye narrows. Hiruzen continues speaking, unaware for a heartbeat. And in that heartbeat, the snake pauses, tongue flicking, as if tasting the room's fear. Tsunade's mind screams one thought, Naruto. She turns sharply, already moving toward the exit. And that is exactly when the chamber's seals flare. Not the chamber's normal seals. A new layer. A lockdown. The doors slam shut. People gasp. Guards rush forward. Danzo's voice is calm, too calm. Everyone remain seated, he says. For your safety. Tsunade's gaze snaps to him like a blade. Jiraiya's face hardens, rage rising. Kakashi's hand shifts toward his blade. Hiruzen stands, voice sharp. What is this? Danzo looks almost regretful. A necessary precaution, he says. The village is in chaos. We cannot allow anyone to move freely during such a sensitive discussion. Tsunade's heart turns to ice because she recognizes the play instantly. Lock the leaders in the room, keep them arguing. And while the village's eyes are on the chamber, someone moves elsewhere. A narrator's truth lands like a hammer. If you can't win the argument, you change the room. If you can't take the child in public, you create a distraction big enough that nobody notices the quiet door opening somewhere else. Tsunade lunges for the door anyway. The seal repels her like a wall. She slams her palm against it, chakra surging, and feels the seal's construction complex, official, built with authority. Danzo's authority. Jiraiya steps beside her, voice low and furious. He's using the hearing as cover, he snarls. Kakashi's eye is ice. Naruto's sweet, he says. Hiruzen's face goes pale. Remove the lockdown, he snaps at Danzo. Danzo's smile is faint. I can't, he says. It's automatic. Liar. Tsunade's breathing turns sharp. She forces it to slow, but fear fights her like a beast. Because if she loses control now, she won't just flare Mokuton, she'll lose time. And time is exactly what the predator needs. Kakashi's voice is steady. There's another exit, he says quietly. Tsunade looks at him. Kakashi gestures toward a side panel in the chamber wall. An old service hatch only ANBU and Hokage staff know. He moves to it, fingers flying, disarming a hidden latch. Jiraiya helps, ripping it open with brute strength when subtlety isn't fast enough. The hatch opens into a narrow maintenance corridor. Hiruzen barks orders to his guards to keep the chamber under control. Tsunade doesn't listen. She's already moving. They sprint through the corridor like ghosts, feet pounding, breath sharp. Kakashi leads. Jiraiya is right behind Tsunade, sealing tags in hand. They burst into the Hokage Tower's upper hallway, and Tsunade feels it immediately. A pressure change. A green taste in the air. Naruto's chakra is spiking. They reach the suite door and find it cracked open. Not broken. Open politely. Tsunade's blood freezes. She rushes in and stops. The room is different. The planters are overturned. Soil scattered. The little seedlings Naruto planted are crushed underfoot, and in the center of the room, the young tree that had been calm is now twisting, branches woven into a tight dome like a cage. A living panic room. Inside the wooden dome, Tsunade hears it. Naruto's crying, muffled, frightened, and above it, another sound, soft laughter, like someone enjoying a puzzle. Jiraiya's voice drops into something lethal. Orochimaru, he growls. Kakashi's eye narrows, scanning. Tsunade steps closer to the dome, palms open, voice soft. Naruto, she whispers, it's me. Naruto's sob hiccups. Mama, he cries, voice shaking. The branches tighten, then loosen slightly as if the dome recognizes her. Tsunade keeps her voice steady. Open, she murmurs. Let me in. The wood trembles. A gap appears. Tsunade slips inside and finds Naruto curled against the tree's trunk, face wet, eyes wide with terror. He throws himself at her the moment he sees her, clinging so hard it hurts. Tsunade holds him, pressing his head to her shoulder, whispering, I'm here. I'm here. Outside the dome, Jiraiya and Kakashi scan the room, searching for the intruder, and then a voice drifts from behind them, calm, amused, too close. You're improving, Orochimaru says. Jiraiya spins, but there is no man standing there, only a pale snake perched on a beam, eyes gleaming unnaturally. a mouth opening wider than any snake's mouth should, and the voice continues through it, like a puppet speaking. This dome, Orochimaru murmurs, is fascinating. Fear makes such strong architecture. Kakashi's hand tightens on his blade. Where are you? He says quietly. Orochimaru's laugh is soft. Here, he replies. And there, and wherever your child leaves roots. Jiraiya's jaw tightens. You were in the council chamber, he snarls. Orochimaru's snake eyes gleam. Of course, he says. I wouldn't miss the village debating whether to cage a miracle. Tsunade steps out of the dome with Naruto still in her arms, eyes blazing. You did this, she says. Orochimaru's voice is almost tender. I merely knocked, he says. Your child answered with a fortress. He's learning. Tsunade's voice shakes with restrained fury. You stepped into his room. Orochimaru's tone is light. I stepped into his world, he corrects, and he is already shaping it. Kakashi's eye narrows. You didn't take him, he says. Orochimaru's laughter returns, soft and cruel. Not today, he says. I came to see something. Jiraiya's voice is a growl. What? Orochimaru's voice drops lower, intimate. Whether the village will fear him enough to do my work for me, he says. Tsunade's blood turns cold. Because she understands. If Konoha brands Naruto with a seal, it validates Orochimaru's worldview that gifted children are specimens to be managed. It also destabilizes Naruto emotionally, making his Mokuton more volatile, more reactive, more desperate, and Orochimaru can follow desperation like a scent. Orochimaru continues, voice calm. You can't stop the growth, he says. You can only decide who cultivates it. Jiraiya steps forward, seal snapping into his fingers. I'll cultivate your grave. The snake's mouth widens in a grin that shouldn't be possible. So dramatic, Orochimaru murmurs. Then the snake's body convulses. It bursts into a spray of pale scales and smoke, dissolving into nothing. A decoy. A messenger. Orochimaru was never physically here. He was close enough to touch Naruto's fear, though. Close enough to nudge the forest inside the child and watch it bloom. And that's what terrifies Tsunade most. Because if he can reach Naruto without taking a step into the room, then the battlefield has changed again. Naruto clings to Tsunade, trembling. Tsunade rocks him gently, breathing slow, forcing her voice to stay calm. You did nothing wrong, she whispers. Naruto's voice is small. I made, tree, he sobs. Tsunade's throat tightens. You made shelter, she corrects. You made safety. Naruto's crying slows slightly. Outside, Jiraiya turns to Kakashi, eyes hard. That lockdown was Danzo, he snarls. Kakashi's eye is ice. Yes, he says. Hiruzen rushes in moments later, face drawn, having broken through the chamber chaos with force and authority. He takes one look at the overturned planters, the crushed seedlings, the wooden dome, Tsunade holding a shaking child, and something in him hardens. This ends, Hiruzen says quietly. Tsunade looks at him, eyes burning. It should have ended earlier, she replies. Hiruzen flinches, then nods. Yes, he admits, and it didn't. That's on me. Jiraiya's voice is low. Danzo trapped us in the chamber, he says. Orochimaru used the gap. Hiruzen's gaze goes distant for one heartbeat, like he's counting sins. Then he speaks, voice iron. Danzo will answer, he says. Tsunade's laugh is bitter. He'll answer with another smile, she says, and another framework. Kakashi's eyes shifts. The village saw the lockdown, he says. They'll ask why? Hiruzen's jaw tightens. Good, he says. Tsunade's gaze sharpens. You're going to turn this into a public confrontation. Hiruzen nods once. I have to, he says. Or he'll do it again. A narrator's insight settles, heavy and inevitable. When power operates in shadows, the only way to stop it is to drag it into light and accept that the light will burn everyone, including the people who tried to keep the peace. Tsunade looks down at Naruto. His breathing is slowing now, tiny fingers still clinging. He looks up at her with wet eyes and whispers, no cage. Tsunade's chest breaks open. She presses her forehead to his. No cage, she whispers back. Not for you. Naruto nods, then buries his face in her shoulder. Tsunade straightens and looks at Hiruzen. If you go to war with Danzo, she says, voice calm, you do it cleanly, no secret deals, no quiet compromises. If you let him slip away again, I will take Naruto and leave. And you will never see either of us again. Hiruzen meets her gaze. He looks older than stone. Understood, he says. Jiraiya steps closer, voice low. And Orochimaru, he says. Hiruzen's eyes harden. We will hunt him, he says. Not as a missing nin rumor, as an active threat. Kakashi's eye narrows. He's already planted seeds, Kakashi says quietly. Tsunade's grip tightens on Naruto. And he's learning Naruto's patterns, she adds. Jiraiya's jaw clenches. Then we change the pattern, he says. Hiruzen looks at Tsunade. What do you want, he asks. Tsunade's eyes burn. I want Naruto to grow up without thinking he's a disaster, she says. I want the village to stop talking about him like he's a weapon, and if they can't, her voice lowers, lethal, then I want enough power to override them. Hiruzen nods slowly. Then you will have it, he says. Effective immediately. Danzo isn't present when these vows are spoken. That's how he likes it. But Tsunade knows he will hear about them within the hour, because villages leak, and tonight, Konoha is hemorrhaging. As evening falls, the council chamber fills again. This time with more witnesses, more clan heads, more guards, and a tension so thick it feels like weather. Hiruzen sits at the head. Tsunade stands at his right. Jiraiya stands at his left. Kakashi stands behind, silent and lethal. Danzo arrives last, calm, smiling faintly, as if he's stepping into a meeting about crop yields instead of a confrontation that could break the village in half. Hiruzen speaks first. The lockdown seal, he says, explain it. Danzo's voice is smooth. A precaution, he says. The chamber was unstable. I acted to protect. Stop, Hiruzen says, voice sharp. Danzo pauses, only a beat. Hiruzen's gaze is cold. While the leaders were trapped, he says, someone accessed Naruto's suite. A murmur ripples through the room. Danzo's eye tightens slightly. That is unfortunate, he says, but correlation is not. It was deliberate, Tsunade cuts in, voice low. Danzo's gaze slides to her. Emotions are high, he says gently. You're a mother, you see enemies in... I see patterns, Tsunade replies. Hiruzen raises a sealed scroll. Root operatives, he says, voice iron, their equipment, their failsafes, their methods, your methods. Danzo's smile fades by a millimeter. Root does not exist, he says again, like a prayer he hopes will become law. Hiruzen's eyes burn. Then you'll have no objection, he says, to surrendering every facility, every operative, every record you control to Hokage inspection. Tonight. The room stills. Danzo's gaze holds Hiruzen's for a long moment, then Danzo smiles faintly. You are demanding my tools, he says softly. Hiruzen's voice is cold. I am demanding you stop using children as tools. Danzo's eye tightens. If you remove my ability to act, he says, you weaken the village. Tsunade's voice is quiet. No, she says. You weaken it by turning it into a laboratory. Danzo's smile returns, thin. You speak as if morality wins wars, he says. Jiraiya's voice is low and dangerous. You speak as if war is the only thing worth winning. Danzo's gaze flicks to him, then back to Hiruzen. If you push this, Danzo says, you fracture Konoha. Hiruzen's jaw tightens. Then maybe Konoha needs to see its fracture, he says. For the first time, Danzo's calm wavers, just a fraction. Because that sentence is the one thing Danzo hates, not disobedience, exposure. The chamber holds its breath. And somewhere, far beyond the tower walls, in a place that smells like sterile liquid and patience, Orochimaru feels that breath catch. He smiles in the dark. Because he knows something none of them want to admit yet. The village is turning inward. The protectors are becoming enemies. And in that chaos, it becomes much easier to steal a child's future without ever touching the child. Part 7 ends not with a punch, but with a decision hanging in the air like a blade that hasn't fallen yet. Hiruzen's voice is iron. Danzo, he says, you are relieved of all covert authority, effective now. Danzo's smile vanishes. And in that single heartbeat, when power is stripped in public, the tower's sensor seals flare violently, not from inside, from outside. A massive chakra ripple blooms at the edge of the village, green, ancient, unmistakable. Tsunade's blood turns to ice. Because that ripple is not Naruto, it's too large, too mature, too wrong. Jiraiya's eyes widen. Kakashi's posture snaps into readiness, and a messenger bursts into the chamber, face pale, voice shaking. Hokage-sama, he gasps. A forest just erupted outside the east wall. Tsunade's heart drops into her stomach, because only one kind of enemy would answer Danzo's downfall with a forest. And only one kind of enemy would choose this exact moment to show the village what seeds can be replanted. Really means. The forest outside the east wall does not grow like normal trees grow. Normal growth is patient. It follows seasons. It negotiates with soil. It asks permission from water. This forest takes. It erupts through earth like a fist through paper, roots punching stone aside, trunks spiraling up in seconds, branches snapping outward in hungry arcs that blot out the evening light. From the Hokage Tower windows, the village can see it. A wall of green where there was open ground an hour ago. People freeze in streets. ANBUs sprint across rooftops. A distant scream cuts through the air like a torn banner. And in the council chamber, something even colder than fear settles into everyone's ribs. Recognition. Because Konoha remembers what a forest that grows like that means. Hiruzen stands, face hardening. Evacuate the East District, he orders. Now. Clan heads rise, orders ripple, the room becomes movement. Danzo doesn't move, not at first. He sits like a statue carved from restraint, one eye narrowed, watching the chaos he just lost control of. Tsunade turns sharply toward the window and feels her blood turn to ice. That chakra ripple is green, yes, but it isn't Naruto's warmth. Naruto's chakra is a living garden, reactive, emotional, clinging. This chakra is disciplined. It has edges. It feels like a command. Jiraiya's voice is low, tight. That's Mokuton. Kakashi's visible eye is cold, not Naruto's. Hiruzen's jaw tightens. Orochimaru, he says quietly. Tsunade's hands curl into fists. In her mind, she sees the tank in the underground lab again. The pulsing cluster, the way it felt like a seed, and she hears the message like a whisper against her ear. Seeds can be replanted. This isn't just an attack, it's an announcement. Orochimaru is showing the village what happens when you treat children like specimens. He is making Konoha taste its own fear. A narrator's truth presses into the moment, heavy and unavoidable. Sometimes the enemy doesn't need to win the battle. They only need to prove your worst fears are justified. Because once fear feels right, people start calling cages solutions. Tsunade spins toward Hiruzen. Naruto, she says. Hiruzen doesn't hesitate. Secure him, he orders, eyes snapping to Kakashi. No one enters that suite. No one, not even council. Kakashi nods once and vanishes. Jiraiya steps beside Tsunade. We go to the east wall, he says. Tsunade's eyes burn. We cut it down. Danzo finally stands, voice calm, too calm. This is exactly what I warned you about, he says. Tsunade's gaze snaps to him like a blade. Don't, she says. Danzo's eye gleams. A forest erupts outside our walls, he continues, and you still want to pretend restraint is cruelty. Jiraiya's voice is a growl. You don't get to use Orochimaru's crime as your argument. Danzo's smile is thin. It's not an argument, he says. It's reality. Hiruzen's voice is iron. Danzo, be silent, he orders. Danzo's jaw tightens, but he obeys. Because for the first time in years, the room has witnesses. And witnesses are poison to men who live on shadows. Tsunade and Jiraiya move through the tower like a storm. Downstairs, through halls, past shinobi scrambling with orders. Outside, the village air is thick with panic and sap. They reach the east wall and the sight hits like a punch. The ground beyond the wall has become a living battlefield. Trees with trunks thicker than houses. Roots coiled like serpents. Branches woven into barricades. Not random growth. Fortifications. A forest designed to fight. ANBU squads are already engaging, cutting branches, burning roots, trying to carve lanes through green that regrows faster than fire can consume. And in the center of it all, standing on a raised platform of living wood, a figure, not Orochimaru, a boy, older than Naruto by years. Thin, pale, hair dark and damp with sap. His eyes are closed as if he's listening to something inside his own skull. His hands are outstretched, and the forest moves with his breath. Tsunade's stomach drops, because this is not a weapon that was forged slowly. This is a child built to be a weapon. Jiraiya's voice goes hoarse. That's a seed grown fast. Tsunade's eyes burn. A clone, she whispers. Not a perfect one, not Hashirama reborn. But something stitched from stolen pattern and forced growth. The boy's eyes open, and in them, Tsunade sees something that makes her blood turn colder than ice. He isn't confused, he isn't afraid, he looks empty, like a tool that has never been allowed to be a person. He turns his head slightly, sensing Tsunade and Jiraiya's approach. His gaze lands on Tsunade. Then, slowly, he smiles. Not like a child. Like a mirror of Orochimaru's polite cruelty. Tsunade Senju, the boy says, voice soft. You came? Orahawe Jiraiya snaps, who are you? The boy tilts his head as if the concept of who is strange. I am, growth, he says. Tsunade's jaw tightens. Where is Orochimaru? The boy's smile widens slightly. Watching, he says. Of course, Orochimaru wouldn't risk his own body here if he can risk someone else's. He's using the clone as a message and a test. How will Konoha react? How will Tsunade react? Will she destroy it? Will she hesitate? Will she show the village her power? Every answer teaches him something. Tsunade steps forward, voice cold. Stop, she orders the boy. Stand down. The boy's brows knit faintly, as if he's trying to remember how obedience feels. Then he shakes his head slowly. I can't, he says. The forest is hungry. Tsunade's throat tightens. That's not hunger, she says. That's programming. The boy's eyes flicker. Is it? He asks softly, and then he raises one hand. The forest answers. A wall of roots surges toward the wall, slamming into stone hard enough to crack mortar. A and BU leap back, barely avoiding being impaled by sharpened branches. Jiraiya forms seals, voice sharp. Fire release. A wave of flame roars outward, scorching branches, turning leaves to ash. For a heartbeat, the forest recoils. Then the boy exhales. New growth erupts through the ash, thicker, wetter, resistant. Tsunade's eyes narrow. He's adapting, she snarls. Jiraiya's jaw tightens. Just like Naruto's wood did. Tsunade's blood runs cold. Because that means Orochimaru isn't just copying Mokuton, he's copying the learning, the responsiveness. He's building something that grows stronger the more it's attacked, a living trap. Tsunade steps forward again, hands raised, not in attack posture, but like a medic approaching a wounded patient. She forces her voice to soften, even as chaos roars around them. "What's your name?" she asks the boy. The boy blinks, confused by the question. Name, identity, personhood. Those things don't exist in a lab. I don't have one, he admits. Tsunade's chest tightens. Then I'm giving you one, she says softly. Jiraiya snaps. Tsunade. She doesn't look back. She keeps her gaze on the boy. Your name is Haru, she says. Spring. The boy's eyes flicker. Spring, he repeats, tasting the word like it's foreign. Tsunade steps closer, careful, palms open. You don't have to do this, she says. You don't have to be what he made you. Haru's expression tightens. For the first time, something human moves behind his eyes. Pain. Confusion. Then the forest shudders violently, as if something is tugging at him from inside. Haru's body stiffens, his mouth opens, and when he speaks, the voice is no longer entirely his. It's layered, two voices in one. Orochimaru's voice rides his tongue like a puppet string. How sweet, Orochimaru murmurs through the boy. You're naming my work. Tsunade's stomach twists. Get out of him, she snarls. Orochimaru laughs softly through Haru's lips. No, he says. I want you to look at him. I want you to see what you inspire. The boy's hands tremble. The forest surges again, driven now by someone else's will. Hiruzen arrives at the wall with elite guards, face grim. He takes in the scene, the living fortifications, the boy, Tsunade, stepping forward like she's bargaining with a storm. His voice cuts through. Tsunade, fall back. Tsunade doesn't. Because she sees it now, Haru isn't an enemy by choice. He's a child chained from the inside. And if she kills him, she proves Orochimaru's point. She proves the village's fear. She hands Danzo his argument wrapped in blood. The second diamond scene unfolds in the middle of destruction. Tsunade steps even closer until she's within striking distance. Haru's eyes widen slightly, a flicker of fear. Fear of her, fear of the world, fear of the forest inside him. Tsunade's voice becomes a whisper, only he can hear through the roar. Haru, she says, listen to me. Haru's lips tremble. He says, grow, Haru whispers, voice strained. Tsunade nods slowly. I know, she murmurs. But you can choose where. Haru's brows knit. Choose, he repeats, as if the word hurts. Yes, Tsunade says softly. Not against people, not against homes. Grow down, into the earth. Let it hold you, not hurt them. Haru's hands shake. The forest trembles. For a second, the roots pause. Then the puppet string voice returns, sharper. No! Orochimaru snarls through Haru. Don't you dare! Haru's face contorts in pain. Tsunade's eyes burn. She reaches out and places her palm on Haru's chest. Not to strike, to heal. Her chakra flows into him like warm light, searching for the foreign threads. Seals, coercion, synthetic growth patterns. She finds them, knotted deep. A web of control seals braided into his nervous system. Orochimaru didn't just grow him, he wired him. Tsunade's fingers tighten not in anger, but in focus. She speaks without looking away, voice steady. Jiraiya, barrier, now. Jiraiya hesitates only a heartbeat, then slams his hands together and summons a toad barrier, seal thick, layered, isolating the immediate area around Tsunade and Haru from outside influence. The air inside the barrier thickens. Orochimaru's pressure falters, like a radio signal losing range. Haru gasps. The forest outside the barrier wavers, less coordinated. Hiruzen barks orders, A and BU moving to contain the shifting tree line. Danzo watches from behind the wall, eye gleaming. He sees Tsunade touching the boy and his expression tightens. Because he can already see how this can be framed, Tsunade's voice is calm inside the barrier. Haru, she whispers, I'm going to cut the strings. Haru's eyes widen. It will hurt, he whispers. Tsunade nods. Yes, she says, but you'll be you. Haru swallows, trembling. Then, barely audible, he whispers, okay. Tsunade closes her eyes. She becomes a surgeon again, steady hands, clean intent. She threads her chakra into the control seals and begins to unravel them strand by strand. Not ripping. Ripping would kill him, unweaving, like pulling thorns from flesh. Haru screams once short, raw, human. Tsunade keeps going, tears stinging her own eyes but not slowing her hands. Because she knows what this moment means. If she frees him, she proves a truth the village has forgotten. Power can be guided with compassion, not only chained with fear. If she fails, she hands Danzo the cage. Orochimaru's voice pushes back through the barrier, faint but furious, like a distant hiss. You can't keep him, the voice whispers through the air. He belongs to growth. Tsunade's jaw tightens. He belongs to himself, she snarls. Her chakra slices the final thread. Haru's body convulses. Then he collapses forward, caught by Tsunade's arms. For a heartbeat, the barrier is silent. Outside, the forest shudders, then slackens like a puppet whose strings were cut. Roots stop surging, branches lower. The aggressive fortifications soften, growth becoming aimless rather than weaponized. The immediate threat eases. Hiruzen's guards push forward, containing the remaining wild growth with fire and sealing teams. Jiraiya drops the barrier, breathing hard. Tsunade kneels, holding Haru against her chest like he's a child she just delivered into the world. Haru's eyes flutter open. They are still green-tinged, still strange. But the emptiness is gone. He looks at Tsunade with a fragile, terrified clarity. Spring, he whispers, remembering the name. Tsunade's throat tightens. Yes, she says. Haru. Behind the wall, Danzo's expression is unreadable. But Tsunade can feel it. He's already thinking how to use this. A clone. A threat. A proof that Mokuton is too dangerous to remain unsealed. And then, like the universe insisting on consequences, Orochimaru's laughter drifts across the battlefield. Not from Haru's mouth this time, but from everywhere. A hidden speaker seal in the trees. A ventriloquist trick. Beautiful, Orochimaru says, voice soft and delighted. You saved my seed. Tsunade's blood goes cold. Hiruzen's gaze snaps to the forest line. Jiraiya snarls. Where are you? Orochimaru's voice laughs gently. You already took what I wanted, he says. You proved the hypothesis. Tsunade's jaw tightens. What hypothesis? Orochimaru's voice turns almost tender. That you will always choose compassion, he says. Even when compassion is expensive. Tsunade's stomach twists. Because she hears the second layer, he forced her to reveal her methods. Her ability to cut control seals. He learned how she counters him. He learned what works. And now, he will adapt. Orochimaru continues, voice calm. Tell the village, he says, that the forest can be calmed without cages. Tell them you don't need your little containment act. Danzo's eye flashes, because Orochimaru is twisting the narrative too. If Tsunade argues against sealing Naruto, Orochimaru can point to Haru and say, see, it's controllable. But Danzo can point to the same scene and say, see, it's contagious. And in the space between those interpretations, Naruto's future is still a battlefield. Orochimaru's voice fades with a final whisper. See you at the roots, he says, and the speaker seal dies. The immediate crisis ends. Not because the enemy is gone, because the enemy achieved what he wanted and left. Konoha spends the next hours containing the wild growth. Sealing teams carve channels through roots. Fire squads burn only what must be burned. Medics run triage for shinobi, stabbed by splinters and crushed by shifting trunks. No civilians die, barely. And that barely becomes another weapon in the political war, because barely is the kind of word fear clings to. Back in the Hokage Tower, Naruto sits in his suite, unaware of how close the world came to turning him into a law. Kakashi stays with him, steady presence, one eye always on the door. Naruto touches the planter and makes a tiny sprout rise, then looks at Kakashi with a serious face. Big tree? Outside? He asks, words still clumsy but clear enough. Kakashi pauses. How do you answer a child whose power just manifested as a battlefield? He chooses honesty, because lies turn into shame. Yes, Kakashi says quietly, a big tree, but not yours. Naruto frowns. Not mine? Kakashi shakes his head. Not yours, he repeats, but it's connected. Naruto's small brow knits. Bad? Kakashi looks at the sprout, then back at Naruto. Not bad, he says. Dangerous, because people use it badly. Naruto stares at his hands, small fingers flexing. Then he whispers, voice tiny. I don't want, hurt. Kakashi's chest tightens. He reaches out and rests a gloved hand lightly on Naruto's head. Then don't, he says simply. And we'll help you. When Tsunade returns hours later, she looks like someone who just fought a war inside her own bones. Naruto runs to her, arms out. Tsunade scoops him up and holds him tight, breathing in his warmth like medicine. Naruto clings, then whispers into her shoulder, no cage. Tsunade's throat tightens. No cage, she promises again. Hiruzen meets Tsunade in his office later that night. Haru is in a sealed medical suite under Tsunade's direct watch, alive, fragile, and no longer a puppet, but still a child built from theft. Hiruzen looks older than he did yesterday. He gestures Tsunade to sit. She doesn't. Danzo is already moving, Hiruzen says quietly. He's saying the incident proves the need for containment. Tsunade's eyes burn, and I'm saying it proves the need to remove him. Hiruzen exhales slowly. Removing him cleanly will be difficult, he admits. Tsunade's voice is cold. Then do it dirty, she says. Do it loud. Do it final. Hiruzen's gaze tightens. If I move against him fully, he says, the village fractures. Root remnants scatter. Enemies smell blood. Tsunade's jaw tightens. Enemies already smell blood, she says. Orochimaru just planted a forest as proof. Hiruzen's face hardens. He looks at Tsunade and speaks the truth that has been sitting between them for weeks. Your son, he says softly, has become the axis of our politics. Tsunade's voice is quiet but deadly. He should have been allowed to be a child, she replies. Hiruzen nods, regret heavy. Yes, he says, and we failed him. Silence settles. Then Tsunade speaks, voice steady. I freed Haru, she says. Hiruzen's eyes flicker. I heard. Tsunade's gaze sharpens. He is proof, she says, that these assets are still people. If we treat them like weapons, we create monsters. If we treat them like children, we create something else. Hiruzen's face softens for a heartbeat. You still believe that, he murmurs. Tsunade's voice is low. I have to, she says, because if I stop believing it, I become them. Hiruzen exhales slowly. Then he reaches into a drawer and pulls out a sealed scroll different from council documents. Older, heavier. He slides it across his desk toward Tsunade. Take this, he says. Tsunade's eyes narrow. What is it? Hiruzen's voice is quiet. A contingency, he says. Authority, beyond the council. If the village turns on Naruto, this scroll grants you legal and military autonomy to leave Konoha with him under Hokage protection. Tsunade's breath catches. Hiruzen meets her gaze. I'm not asking you to run, he says. I'm giving you the key to a door that won't be locked by fear. Tsunade's throat tightens. She takes the scroll slowly, feeling the weight of it. A freedom document. A weapon of a different kind. And Danzo? She asks. Hiruzen's eyes harden. I will begin dismantling him, he says. Quietly at first cutting resources, isolating allies. Then publicly, when the ground is ready. Tsunade's jaw tightens. He'll strike before you finish. Hiruzen nods. Yes, he admits, which is why we must be ready. Tsunade turns to leave, scroll tucked into her sleeve. At the door, Hiruzen speaks again. Tsunade, he says quietly. She pauses. His voice is soft. When Hashirama founded this village, he says, he wanted peace, not control. Tsunade's chest tightens. Then we honor him by refusing to turn his gift into a cage, she replies. She leaves. Outside, the tower is quieter now. The village is exhausted. And exhausted villages make dangerous choices because they crave certainty. In the days that follow, Konoha changes in subtle ways. Root facilities are found. One by one, some emptied, some burned, some booby-trapped, as if someone is cleaning their own footprints. Hiruzen's orders tighten. Danzo's influence begins to shrink inch by inch. But Danzo does not go quietly. He starts a whisper campaign that spreads like mold. They say Naruto is too dangerous. They say the forest outside the wall proves Mokuton can't be trusted. They say Tsunade is emotional and reckless. They say the Senju heir will bring war. And people listen, because fear is persuasive when you're tired. Tsunade refuses to hide Naruto again. She brings him to the estate clinic. She lets people see him as a child, laughing, playing, helping her water plants. She makes the village confront the contradiction. How can you fear someone who is learning to grow flowers? But contradictions don't stop politics, they only slow it. Haru begins to recover under Tsunade's care. He doesn't talk much, he flinches at sudden noise. Sometimes, in sleep, his fingers twitch and small sprouts push out of the bed frame like nervous thoughts. Tsunade sits beside him at night, not as a medic, but as someone who understands what it means to be shaped by loss. One evening, Haru opens his eyes and whispers, "Do I belong?" Tsunade's throat tightens. "Yes," she says quietly, "but you get to decide where." Haru stares at her for a long moment, then whispers, "Not Snake." Tsunade's voice softens. "Not Snake," she agrees. Naruto meets Haru once carefully, with guards nearby and seals layered, not because Haru is evil, but because the world is unsafe. Naruto looks at Haru with wide eyes. Haru looks back with a strange softness. Naruto reaches out, small hand extended. Haru hesitates, then takes it gently. A tiny sprout rises between their fingers, as if the wood inside both of them recognizes kin. Naruto giggles. Haru blinks, then, slowly, smiles. Small and fragile, like a seed cracking. And in that moment, Tsunade feels something shift, a different future. Not one child alone under a spotlight, but two children who can remind each other they are people. Still, the danger doesn't fade. Orochimaru remains in the shadows, pleased with what he learned. Danzo remains in the village, furious and patient. And the village remains torn between fear and hope. Until the final confrontation comes, not with blades, but with choice. It happens on a day that feels almost normal. Tsunade is at the estate, Naruto in the garden, Haru resting inside. A messenger arrives, breathless. "Lady Tsunade," he says, voice shaking. "Hokage-sama requests you immediately." Tsunade's chest tightens. She takes Naruto's hand and brings him inside, leaving him with Kakashi. Then she goes to the tower. The council chamber is filled again, but the mood is different. It's not debate, it's verdict. Danzo stands at the center now, facing Hiruzen. Hiruzen holds a stack of documents, proof collected quietly, facility maps, funding trails, witness statements, route operatives captured and flipped, the lockdown seal authorization traced back to Danzo's hand. The village has finally stopped pretending it doesn't know. Hiruzen's voice is steady. "Shimura Danzo," he says, "you have acted without authorization. You have maintained covert forces in violation of Hokage order. You have endangered Konoha's children in the name of control." Danzo's face is calm, but his eye gleams. "You call it endangerment," Danzo says. "I call it protection." Hiruzen's gaze hardens. "You are removed," he says, "from all authority. Effective immediately. You will surrender yourself for confinement and trial." A murmur ripples. Danzo's smile is faint. "Trial," he repeats. "You believe the village will let you put me on trial while enemies circle?" Hiruzen's voice is iron. "Yes," he says, "because the village is done with shadows." Danzo's gaze slides past Hiruzen to the gathered clan heads. Some faces are hard, some uncertain, some afraid. Danzo sees the weakness. He speaks softly, like planting a seed. "And what of the Senju child?" he asks. "The one who caused this chaos. Will you cage him, or will you pretend love is armor?" Tsunade's blood turns to fire. She steps forward before anyone can answer. "He didn't cause this," she says coldly. "You did." Danzo's gaze shifts to her, calm. "You are emotional," he says gently. "That is why you cannot lead." Tsunade's voice is quiet. "That's why I can," she replies, "because I still see people." Danzo's smile thins. "Then you are weak." Tsunade's eyes burn. "Then the village deserves weakness," she says, "because your strength is rot." The room stills. Hiruzen's hand lifts, signaling guards. Two A and BU step forward to take Danzo. Danzo does not resist. Not at first. He lets them approach. He lets their hands almost touch his arms. And then, like a snake striking from stillness, Danzo moves. A seal flashes. A gust of chakra pulses outward. The nearest A and BU collapses, throat seized by an invisible grip. Danzo's eye gleams with a cold finality. "If you remove me," Danzo says softly, "you remove your last shield." He turns, body blurring toward the exit. Jiraiya lunges. Kakashi appears, intercepting. The chamber erupts into chaos as Danzo tries to escape. But Hiruzen is ready. He slams his staff down, chakra flaring through the room's ancient seals, locking doors, thickening barriers. Danzo is forced to stop. He stands in the center again, breathing hard now for the first time. Hiruzen's voice is cold. "Enough," he says. Danzo's gaze is sharp. "You will regret this," he snarls. Hiruzen's eyes do not flinch. "Perhaps," he says. "But the village will survive without you." Danzo's expression tightens, rage breaking through calm. Then, with a sudden bitter laugh, he says the last thing he thinks will save him. "The boy will destroy you," Danzo says. "And when he does, you will wish you listened." Tsunade steps forward, eyes like fire. "No," she says. "He will build what you tried to burn." Guards surge in again, and this time Danzo is subdued, bound with seals that prevent chakra use, escorted out under witness and record. The village's shadow is finally dragged into light. Not dead, but chained. And that matters. Outside the chamber, Tsunade exhales slowly. It doesn't feel like victory. It feels like a door slammed on a storm that can still rattle windows. Hiruzen looks at Tsunade. "It's done," he says quietly. Tsunade's eyes narrow. "One of them," she replies. Hiruzen nods, grim, because Orochimaru is still out there and seeds are still planted. But something has changed. Danzo's fall breaks a pattern. It tells the village that fear does not get to write law unchecked. It gives Naruto a chance to grow without being branded. Weeks pass. The Containment Act dies quietly, starved of Danzo's influence and exposed by the forest incident. The whispers don't vanish overnight, But they weaken as people see Naruto as a child again, laughing in gardens, helping Tsunade water plants, waving at shopkeepers who slowly, reluctantly begin to wave back. Haru becomes part of the estate's quiet life, learning to exist without orders. Sometimes he and Naruto sit in the garden together, hands in soil, growing small things that don't threaten anyone. And Tsunade watches them and feels something like hope, raw, fragile, expensive. Jiraiya continues hunting Orochimaru, but now he does it with full village backing, not whispered missions. Kakashi becomes Naruto's steady shadow, not a jailer, but a guardian who doesn't flinch when Naruto's power hums. Hiruzen visits the estate occasionally, old eyes softening when he sees sprouts in the garden and realizes the founder's gift can look like peace again. One evening, Naruto crawls into Tsunade's lap, tired and warm. He looks up at her and whispers, "Mama, I'm okay?" Tsunade's throat tightens. She cups his cheek gently. "Yes," she whispers, "you're okay?" Naruto blinks slowly, then smiles, small and sleepy, and the young tree in the corner rustles softly, like applause. The final narrator insight settles like a closing prayer. Konoha was built by people who believe peace could be grown, not enforced, not stolen. Grown like a tree that takes years to become strong. Naruto Senju is not a miracle because he can make forests. He is a miracle if he can make a village remember that children are not weapons. And power is not a curse unless fear makes it one. Tsunade holds him a little tighter. Outside, the village is quieter than it has been in weeks. Not safe, never fully safe, but breathing. And for now, that is enough. She presses a kiss to Naruto's forehead. Then she looks toward the garden where Haru is watching a flower bloom. 2 children, 2 seeds rescued from different kinds of darkness. And a mother who decided the world would not get to decide what they become. If you want more stories like this, drop a like, share what you do in Tsunade's place, and subscribe to Fanfics in a Nutshell for the next arc.